We just lift this time up to you, that we invite your presence, and we welcome it right now, that you move on our hearts and that your will be done. So we ask your blessing during this time. We give you praise, honor, and glory in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen.
All right, and if everybody would please stand, we'll say a pledge. The flag is in the back corner. Okay, ready? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. And with that, I would really like to thank Paul Preston for coming up here and making the trek up to Lassen County. And here you go. Take it away, Paul. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's really nice to be here. Probably better stand up so I can. If I have to sit, it's because I've been in several very severe auto accidents, one almost killing me in Oroville. Was in the hospital for a long time. 5 broken ribs, a broken hip, and an ankle, and everything else. Pulled out with the jaws of life. It was very exciting. Anyway, but some other things. So sometimes I have to sit. I can go about an hour and a half, and then all of a sudden I'm down. So it's just the way it works. For having me here, this is home away from home. I lived 9 years in Florida. First off, and every year in Middle. That's awesome. I'm no stranger to the mountains of the Sierras. I used to spend most of my winter days skiing in Mammoth Mountain, and in the summer days out backpacking all around here. And then we moved up here, and back, 96, 97. And lived in Yale for a year, then lived over in Chester and on the East Shore, and then lived over in, what's it called, Fort Cole? That's a little bit, this side of Fort Cole, what's it called? Green, what I connected Green, a couple of years. But, so yeah, I'm used to this, and I miss it. I have not been up here since the fires. And I was coming up all the time just to drive around. I just take it for the weekend and drive it a couple of days. And of course, miss it. But now the new California thing is basically, I'm driving around all over the state. I have a 2003 Chevy S10 4Y, and it's got almost a half a million miles on it. Commercial people have seen it. Testify to the fact right there. Anyway, it's a beast. It still goes fine. But I do a lot of traveling. I've been to all 58 counties. I've given speeches in all 58 counties, from Imperial over to Modoc, the big country, and where there's snow today. I always talk about snow. One day when I drove up to get some plum brandy, is that what it is? They have it there. This was years ago. It was snowing in the summer. It's a nice drive. Anyway, so I found out that they were in Modoc. It's always snowing in Modoc now. But anyway, we've been at this thing for a long time about the state and the state of New California, and we're getting, hopefully, cross our fingers, we're getting pretty close to statehood. And it's been, the real process started in 2018 when we declared independence from the state of California. And that's a real official, the world recognized that we declared independence from the state of New California. Please understand that. The world governments recognize that. If you want to be in a new state, the big secret is declare yourself independent. Now, that's not a general worldwide accepted viewpoint, or people in the world might not like it. But the reality check is a bunch of brave men came together in 1776 and they wrote the Declaration of Independence. The only document like its kind. The only document. And that document was written by 56 men, one Catholic, one Jew, and the rest were Presbyterian Protestants. That was the demographics of the 13 colonies at the time. So no So these documents that were written by holy men. Put this out there up front because these documents are holy documents. They're written by biblical scholars. You know, today, this right now makes right back in the day, just the biblical scholars, the only thing that made them a geek was the Bible. They were biblical geeks. And they knew about everything you can imagine with the Bible because that's what people back then, they learned how to read, write, do arithmetic, and build a great nation. This is the only nation on earth that's been built with the Bible. Contrary to popular opinion, that this is the old men slave owners who didn't know anything. They just wanted to do business. They just wanted to do this, that, or the other. They were all about, conquering lands and things like that. That's garbage. It's absolutely not true. Many of them were between their 20s and 30s and 40s. I think Benjamin Franklin, at the time, he was in his early 70s. He was the old guy. So all of us would be not old. But it puts it something in perspective. I call him the white-bearded geek of the time. And he had a bunch of young guys that were these scholars in the Bible, and they wanted to put together, they understood there was tyranny. And they understood the reason why they came to the New World was to escape the tyranny of the tyrants, which meant the oligarchs, which meant the monarchies, which meant the theocrats or the churches, because they were all oppressing the people. That was the way it was back then. You had the upper class and you had the third class. And that's the way it was. And the explorers of them, such as Christopher Columbus, came to the New World, and boom, game on. Colonization took place, and all these royals, they came out here and they settled in the New World. And of course, people who found out about it, wanting to get away from their oppression, came out too. You've all heard about, what's that Mayflower called? Right? The Mayflower. They were the first colonists to come aboard and say, wait a minute, let's try this country out and see what it's like. Their first experiment for the first year was in socialism. Have you ever read the story about that? Most of them all died. Then they had to figure out, wait a minute, maybe our property is important. Maybe things that we could have to do for ourselves and our family, and to be self-reliant and resilient. Maybe those are things that would hold true to us. So that became one of the pillars of our country. Self-reliance, the ability to go out and do things on your own property, which was also a big concept then. Nobody had that concept because nobody could own property with any kings or queens, with any oligarchs, with any of these rulers. Nobody owned property, only the elites owned property. Now, one of the things I'm out here for today is to figure out what these elites are doing about gray wolves. I am on a mission today, by the way, and I'll touch upon that later. I think we have some people in the audience want to talk about that. And I will carry your message right to Donald Trump. Just to let you know. This is a serious thing we're doing here. The world knows it's serious. Sacramento, to the Vatican, they take this movement seriously. This is not the state of Jefferson. It's not any knockoff, we want to split the state business. I want to be very clear. I was in the state of Jefferson for a long time. They took the wrong road. Yogi Berra says when you see a fork in the road, take it, right? Correct? I should say correct. I know to do that fork is 3 forks. They took the wrong fork. And they did so knowingly. And that's a problem with it. I'm just going to lay that on you so we just settle that problem right now. I ethically could not stay there. Because there is a problem doesn't call for making a state by a lawsuit. It does not. So when we talk about what we're doing here, we're deadly serious. We've had people in this group, in our group, who died, sacrificing their lives for California. There are bad actors out there, and they don't want us to exist. I'm being perfectly blunt. Now, how many of you have really heard of us? How many have seen the mainstream media as just they're awash with New California? I have to sit on this one, I'm sorry. I think one of the best authors about New California is right here. I really do. Because you wrote a fantastic article about New California, thank you very much. And we treasure those articles. I'll tell you why, because they are the truth. Okay, this is the fact of life. We are absolutely not published anywhere in Wikipedia. We have a Wikipedia webpage, and we opened that up about 7 years ago. And I put a big web thing up there, we put states, we had everything. 3 pages of Wikipedia, we slaved over it. I woke up one morning and said, how's that Wikipedia thing going? You know, we had 3 million hits after we declared that our Declaration of Independence. 3 million hits within about a week and a half. That's how much the world was looking at us. So I thought maybe Wikipedia would do something. No, they took it all down. And every time I go to try and put something up on Wikipedia, they take it all down in 15 minutes. Now, we have had some movement, because about 3 months ago I tested it. It took them 90 minutes to take it down. In other words, they don't want you to know about it. We go down to the Capitol. We will be down there again on the 25th. We'll be down on the 25th, and what we're going to talk about is we're going to sign a bill. That bill is before you right now. That bill is the bill upstairs. It's the first bill passed by our legislature. I will sign it into law, effective the day we become a state. Effective when we become a state. And we'll talk about that law in a second, how important it is. And how important it is for you to understand the concepts of the Constitution. When we go down there, and we plead with the state of California about certain things like stopping one of the largest businesses in California today, called child sex trafficking. California is now the largest slave trading state in the Union, and second in the world only to China. Now, I'm sure that your politicians that are running for office probably failed to mention that to you, correct? Everyone will, because they're still beholden to the election. They think they want to be the ones that are selected by the elites who control the elections. This is how deep it goes. This is not for the faint of heart. This is where you have people who want to conquer other people who want to go scorched earth and then remove your minerals. Am I making sense? And go through scorched earth territory. How many years is it going to take for the forest up there in Loomis County outside of Chester? That is defeated. How many years is it going to take for those forests to come back? 30? Maybe 130, maybe everyone's going to start raining. I saw some of the places. Does it keep going up? Well, I'm garlic. I was very, very impressed as I was driving in. I saw some trees that were planted. And what I'm going to propose that we do immediately, the moment we start in California, is we're going to bring in an army of people There's not just one tube, there's hundreds of them. And they're done. And the same with law enforcement. They're done. They're done with this part of their lives. And constantly having to hide things and things like that. So when you talk about their leadership, when you talk about county supervisors, you're not one of these people. When you talk about county supervisors, you talk about anybody who's an elected official in California, state official. I won't even talk about people like Alex Padilla yet. They're all corrupted to some degree. Some less than others, and they don't even know it. Some actually were elected by a proper election, and they don't even know it. But every election is tainted with an algorithm. Every election is tainted with the process of running for an election at the state level. And that was set up years and years and years ago by a guy, what's the guy's name? The Otai guy? Charles Herbert Jr. He was the president of the Republican Party, and he decided back in 2008, he became the president, and he brought in SEIU into the Republican Party. This is all after a whole series of the Republican Party failures, and also the failure of California state government in a process called term limits. That ultimately brought us Jerry Brown for a third and fourth term. But you didn't know that. That's a whole other story. But our elections are set up so that there's a lot of people who run in the primary. It dilutes the vote of any of the top two. The top two people, regardless of their party, get to go to the general election. Does that make sense? It's called the jumbo primary. And that was brought in 2010. So the idea is that it would be equal, but how come when you did the primary and still do the primaries today, that all the people that are running in the top two are Democrats versus Democrats? How does that work? I'll tell you how it works. If you think you're going to get a Republican governor this time in the elections, you probably will, because they'll fix it this way. They have to. They're on the ropes. And they really are on the ropes. They will fix it this way. That's my guess, unless Donald Trump steps in, which I think he's going to. They will fix it and say, oh, we're going to give you a Republican this time. But what Republican are you going to get? What Republican are you going to get? A Republican governor that's going to represent you? No. Not at all. You're going to get a Republican governor who's going to be representing properly the British government. You're playing on the world stage. This is your reality. This isn't little Lassen County anymore. It's Lassen County worldwide. It's Orange County worldwide. It's Rhode worldwide. Every county in California is a worldwide player. And we're all placed for sale. Thank you, Gavin Newsom, Jerry Brown, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and the democratic process that we've had. And by the way, how do you like the democracy of California? Let me tell you how we got there. We started out as a republic. A republic, you know that thing that you can keep it, right? If you can, Benjamin Franklin. It represented everything. And by the way, doesn't it say, the proof is that you have a situation where when republic is actually printed on the flag as a California republic, right? So there's proof we're a republic, right? Well, this is how the counties manage. We came into statehood in 1849-50. And that was a direct result of gold in them lower hills, these hills. That's what that was. Let's be clear. We pulled out about 175 tons in the first couple of years and put that in the treasury of the United States. How much did Great Britain have at the time? 25 tons. We far surpassed Great Britain at that point. There was nothing on the worldwide stage. You think that made them happy? Their little colony over here was 175 tons. All of a sudden, came on in 1848. So, smart people got together. Zachary Taylor. How many have heard of Zachary Taylor? Did you know he was looking for gold over here in Timbuktu on the other side? Anyway, but a little Rough and Ready, great story about Rough and Ready. They seceded from the Union. Okay, have anybody been to Rough and Ready? Isn't it a great thing, Doc? It's good, but it's there, right? They got their Rough and Ready thing. Okay, so this is the story. Maybe some of you are better at telling the story than me. But this is the story. They were all excited. Here comes the 4th of July. But then they got really mad at the United States for some reason. We don't know. And they said, we're going to secede from the Union. So they drop out. They tell everybody, we're dropping out. We're seceding from the Union. Okay, so the 4th of July comes rolling around. Well, they soon find out that everybody in the valley down there in Smartsville and Grass Valley and Nevada City, they're not selling them any liquor. No liquor for you. You want part of our country? No liquor, no supply. Rough and Ready. So they are kind of like, yeah. But here comes the 4th of July, day by day, it gets closer. And everybody's getting like, oh my God, I got to have a drink and enjoy that beer like that. So what do? What do? We're back. We want to rejoin the Union. Just in time for what? The 4th of July. That's Rough and Ready thinking. But Zachary Taylor came here after 1846. And he saw the potential in the gold fields, and what he did is he proposed that California become a state. He proposed it. Now, it's like character, because most of the states that are dislodged as Union either were doing what we're doing, Article 4, Section 3, or the territory. It was the first state to be invited in by the president. So he died. Oddly enough, he was poisoned. Now, they don't say he's poisoned, but it's pretty obvious if you read the reports at the time, he's poisoned. So then George Gilmore picks up the ball, because he's the vice president, and he proposes a bill to go in to make California the 51st state. And California had to come up, and they already did. They had 1849 and 50 had written the Constitution. And in that Constitution, it was Republican in its form. It was going to be guaranteeing that there would be 3 branches of government, and it would be bicameral. There would be a Senate, and there would be an Assembly, a House of Representatives. And it would be Republican in its form. It would guarantee that against invasion, it would not allow the invasion of its borders. It guaranteed that it would also keep people safe, which is the last part of Article 4, Section 3, Article 4, Section 4, Clause 3, which is keeping you safe from domestic violence. You have to have that guarantee. If you don't have it, you're not recognized. So they take it in, and guess what? The Congress approved it. Of course they did. It was on the president's word that they did that. It wasn't because they followed the protocols of Article 3, or they followed the protocols of the territory. It was because there was a new protocol to follow, and that was the President of the United States, who has this authority, brought it forward and said, will you make this a state? And they did. And we became a state. And of course, just the other day, September 9th was admission day, 175 years ago. California was admitted to the Union. And guess what? Its Constitution of 1849-50, we readopted with reorder as California. And really, right now, the California state doesn't get it. But constitutionally, we in the new California state movement, with the reorganized Constitution, we're a little wild, but this is the way it works, guys. We are actually under the auspices of the 1849 Constitution, which was this big Constitution that we have, which is a compact Constitution. And California is operating right now with no Constitution as a state.
So does President Trump have authority just to say, yeah, in California, you're good to go. We're done. Are we done?
No comment. But he has unusual authorities at times like this.
We need to call him.
He knows. He knows.
So would you say what you just said before the young lady mentioned?
Did you miss that part?
I just thought you should reload that. We are not under.
I know. Right. The state of California right now is not under any constitutional authority at all. It's not. They're just playing down there. They're actors. They're shysters. They're bozos. They're the clown.
Doesn't it all make sense now?
Does it? It shouldn't. I mean, it all. They are not abiding by the Constitution, are they? Because they know they don't have to.
Does that make sense? That really starts to make sense. Now, 2 weeks ago, would that have made sense? Probably not. But now all of a sudden, listen, it makes more sense. Were you on the show yesterday to listen to it? Did you hear what that thing at the 4th and 5th hour, that hearing that they had about the farmers? How many of you are ranchers and farmers in here? So you're ready to lose your farms and ranches? So yesterday, I think they had their 3rd hearing in Sacramento, and it was by Zoom. And they had it at 9 o'clock, right after my show. So great radio. So I tap in. We're going to go another 2 hours, right? So we run this thing 2 hours. You would not believe what I was listening to, or what the audience was listening to. The people were outraged. We had New Californians going over the top about what we were hearing with this discussion going on. It's about how they're going to take away your farms and your ranches.
No, they're not.
They are in Southern California, they're cutting out the water.
No, I know they already are. This time they mean it. They're going to pass laws now. What they've been doing is regulating it. Now they're going to codify it in laws. And that means it's the beginning of the end. And what are they going to do? Now, this is not a racial statement. This is their words. Which, by the way, I'm not real fond of racist. Anybody who knows me, they know I'm not. I'm not fond of any color racist. Racism is racism is racism. They intend, if you're a white farmer and rancher, that there's a crisis in farmers for the black race. So there's got to be reparation and there's got to be equalization. So white farmers are going to have to give up their farms and ranches based on whatever imagined quotas being developed by the clowns that we were listening to yesterday. Listen, I've sat through administrative meetings ad nauseum, Zoom meetings ad nauseum. And, everybody I've ever been with in the education circles that I was in education for 41 years, even in calls that were from Sacramento and all over. The only one that was an ad nauseum meeting was a meeting that we sat around in Washington, D.C. at the Gaylord Hotel. And it was a table round of educators from around the nation. And Arnie Duncan comes up, the time of Arnie Duncan. And Arnie Duncan is your education secretary, right? And he's giving you race to the top and all this other stuff. And Arnie Duncan is, in my opinion, we sat there and listened to him speak for about 20 minutes. Educators from all over the place, PhDs, superintendents. And we sat there, he got up and walked away. And we sat there in dead silence for a good 3 minutes. We could not believe what we were hearing. And so I looked at him and I said, is it just me? And they go, oh no, it's us too. It's us too. It was so stupid. It was so unattached to anything dealing with education, or the reasons why we flew all the way to Washington, D.C. to have a discussion about race to the top. It was unbelievably disconnected. Well, guess what it was like yesterday? Deja vu again. Deja vu all over again. These people were whacked. I mean, literally, I thought that we were dealing with 3 children on this call. You had an empty room with a woman sitting there with a computer, desks all around, which, by the way, reminds me, the next time they have a meeting, I think we should go fill that room. It's room 701 in the Capitol. It's a meeting room. It's open to the public. Why not? So these 3, and we've got it on tape so you can listen to the whole thing. These 3 people were childlike, absolutely immature. They could not complete one sentence after another. That's what you're dealing with up there. There's the evidence right there. And now the evidence coming out that they really are going to take the announcement. And now, what are they doing? They're following the agenda of the kulaks. Do you know what the kulaks are, who they are? When the Soviet Union first developed, there became part of these programs all around the Soviet Union. They're going to equalize everything, and they have to have collectivization and stuff like that. Well, the Ukrainian kulaks were known farmers. They were great farmers. They had great farmland, and they enriched the world in that whole part of Europe as farmers. They knew their farms. They didn't own them, but they had possession of them for generations, hundreds of years. So what do the communists do? And I'm talking about communists. I'm not talking about Russians, and I'm not getting into the Russian-Ukrainian thing at all. I'm telling you what the Soviets did. And the Soviets come in with their philosophy. By the way, all their leadership was from where? Columbia University. That's where Lenin went to school. Did you guys know that? That's something you need to look up, because all the main leaders were from New York. That's who gave you the Soviet Union. Now, there's a lot to be told about that, but that's history that I can't get into right now. So the kulaks were part of that problem to them. They wanted to collectivize them. So what they did is they said, we're going to come in and take your farms, and we've got people over here, and we're going to give them 12-year contracts on your property, and you're just dismissed. You're just gone. You lose everything. And within 2 years, there was famine, and millions died. And millions died. If they didn't leave fast enough, they shot them. That's correct. Yeah. There's a whole history about that. I suggest you study it. It's that technique that they're doing. Right now, they're doing this right now. Same thing in the Netherlands. They're taking their farms. And in France, they're doing the same thing. Why do you think? Anybody have a manure machine? You put it on the back of your tractor and it just... You ever see that? What they do in Europe? What they do? Well, that's what's going on. That's why they're doing that. They're pulling up in front of the ag departments and stuff, and they're just blowing out BS right on them because they're not respecting them, because they're trying to take their farms away. That's why they do that. So it's a battle around the world of these totalitarians that are doing this. This is all spawned by United Nations Agenda 21. Hence the name of my show, Agenda 21, but that's not the real reason. It's American exceptionalism for the 21st century. I stole it from them. Once in a while, we hijacked it. My point to you guys is this is real stuff that's happening, and New California is dealing with it. We are actually dealing with it, and we have been for a long time. We've been dealing with the problems and the ills, and one of them happens to be with the sheriffs. And I'll read that in a second, but I want to cover some more territory on this agenda. So let's follow along here. Okay, so Article 4, Section 3, state split and the guarantee clause. I want to cover that very quickly so you know what it means. And I'll give you some little secrets. Those people that are struggling to form a new state, good luck. How do you think they're going to make it, Jay? Okay, and the reason is because, let me give you the rundown of our accomplishments in the last 8.5 years. Okay, so you know how this works. You just can't come out and say we're going to make a new state. Use your crayon and draw lines all over and say this is the way it's going to be.
That's what they did.
That's what they did. That's right. So far, that's all I've seen is that technique. This process is a process, and it's made for people that are going to get up and go and do and get things done in a governmental style. That's what this is made for. It's made by the Founding Fathers. Remember what I said about the Founding Fathers. Everything they learned about government came out of the Bible. It's all biblically based. Keep that in mind, everything. So when they talk about a Declaration of Independence, and they mention the Declaration of Independence, and you read the Declaration of Independence, I think I have a copy here, don't I? Well, I have many copies. Somewhere. This was the first document that they wrote, that they came up with. And what was happening at the time, the British were mutilating and killing, maiming people all over the place. They were taking their property. If you ever saw, what was the movie, The Patriot? A very, very real depiction. I'm wearing a button right here. It's a yellow button. I'm wearing a shirt today that's yellow. I don't like this shirt, but I wear it because it's yellow. It's wig yellow. Wig yellow. Ever heard of that? Ever heard of the Whigs? We are all Whigs. If you are thinking about running a republic, you're all Whigs. The Whig ideology is what has driven us. So this yellow right here has a Gadsden flag actually embedded in it. And you've seen that flag, right, with the snake? Do we know what that's for? You got the wig yellow for representation, but you have the snake in the yellow. Why? Because in Europe, there are no rattlesnakes. So the marching army from Europe, all of a sudden people throw rattlesnakes at their feet. Guess what? They start dancing out of line. You have a weapon. You have something they fear. And the soldiers of the British Army hated the snakes, the rattlesnakes. My God, they bite, they poison, they kill you, right? So these Americans, they throw those things at you. I hate it when that happens, right? But you know what? It's small consolation after they burn, 20 families in a church on a Sunday, because that's what was going on. That was the revolution, and it had been going on for a long time. Benjamin Franklin made the first cartoon, political cartoon, and what it is, it was a black flag, and it had a snake, a rattlesnake, and it was divided up into sections. And the statement on the front was join or die. Now, he was a printer. He was the only printer in Philadelphia. And that was the very first political cartoon, join or die. It was done in 1850. Isn't there a long time between 1850 and 1750 and 1776? A long time. Before all of a sudden they put it together and said, yeah, we're going to join and die or not die. So every house that was a Whig throughout the entire eastern seaboard had a Gadsden flag on it. That's where that came from. That's why still today you see the Gadsden flag all over the place. But people don't understand the real value of the Whigs any longer, because the attack by the other team on our Constitution, our understanding of the Constitution, has been absolutely spectacular since 1776. Right now, we don't teach the Constitution at law school. Did you know that any attorneys in here can verify that? Usually get one or two. Are you guys secret attorneys in here? No. It's okay. The dinosaur is not going to eat you off the toilet here. Okay, how many? And this is the compliment to you guys. How many of you took Constitution classes in school, junior high and high school? Right. Okay. Anybody a teacher right now? Any just left 10 years ago, 5 years ago? I think Jay will. Any teachers? Okay, Jay, I'm sure he's going to back me up. Okay, back in the 80s, back in the late 80s, we got some directives from the State Department of Education on some curriculum standards coming from the state, which meant we weren't having to do the curriculum standards at the local level, right? It was coming down. So I was in my El Dorado High School in Placentia, California, and I was administrator, and one of my duties was the government group. Now, if you've ever been the administrator over a group of teachers that taught government or history, they're very opinionated. They're very opinionated about things that come down from the state of California. And that's okay. I'm also opinionated about it, because I don't, never know. I was with them. So we get this comment that they were saying that they're going to reduce the number of weeks that these teachers are to spend on the Constitution. And so they're all kind of like going, no, we're not. And I said to them at the time that I was reading all this, I looked at them and I said, I'm sure you're all going to abide by that, right? And they're going, nope, we're not. And they never did. I think the last one retired in 2005. I went to Esperanza High School, a bigger school, the next year, and same question was asked to them, and they said, we ain't doing it. I said, no problem. We're not going to pull out your toenails to talk about that. We're just not doing it. And so by defiance, that was happening. I talked to a lady in San Bernardino, one of our reps in San Bernardino County. She was a teacher. She just retired in 2017. And she was a government teacher. And she said that the kids today have no idea about the Constitution. None, zero, zip, nada. Let alone think of the biblical connections, right? Let alone. And who brings in the biblical connections for these young kids now, or did? Who?
Oh,
Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk. He's the only one who's done that effectively. New California, we've been teaching that. We've been doing that to adults. Here's the miracle. It's a two-headed miracle. It's the miracle of what is happening at Turning Point with the kids, because the biblical beliefs are so strong, and they've hooked it with the Constitution. Finally, here's the other miracle. It's you in your age group. They blew it. They should have upped their game, or at least waited until 2050, which is what their original plan was, and all of us would be gone. And so would be our institutional memory of the Constitution. See, I can sit in front of you today, and I can have a constitutional conversation, and you get it, sort of. Maybe some not more than others. The big moment for me was in 2006, when I was struggling with this whole thing about what's happening in the schools and watching the totalitarians come in, the communism come in and take over the schools and so on. And I said, there's got to be a way to stop it. And I didn't even really kind of give a thought to the Constitution. Isn't that weird? But I was thinking about being a history government teacher myself, and I turned out being a biological sciences teacher. So I learned genetics and virology and all that stuff. So I was pretty strong in constitutional thought, really, in training. I read all the, what are they called? The papers, Federalist Papers, thank you. I read all the federal, I thought I knew all that, but I did not connect it in my heart with the Holy Spirit. And understand that these were written by godly scholars, and Jesus Christ was their Savior. It's a big hook. And when I read the Declaration of Independence, in that context in 2006, I said, I think I get this thing now. Still didn't totally get it, because I still was looking for what is that out in which the government, the founding fathers, must have known that one of their states or some of their states would revert into a democracy and not be a republic. California, its quest to become a republic was in 1848. In 50, it became a state, and the state became joined with the Union of State through a compact. That's a holy document. It's a holy action in which the bonds will never be severed between the United States of America and that state. Regardless of what government is there, it will not be broken. That's the compact. Every state in the Union has a compact. Now, many states thought they could deviate from that compact. When Washington District became incorporated in 1871, and from that point forward, states said, well, if they're incorporated, we can be too. We can abandon our Constitution that was the compact Constitution and live by another Constitution. No, you can't. No, you can't. By agreements of the compact, the state always has to guarantee to you a Republican form of government, freedom from invasion, and freedom from domestic violence. That's the essence of Whiggism, by the way. One of them. There's many more, but that's one of them. That this compact of Republican form of government will always remain true. California decided to go ahead and create a corporate document and become incorporated. And in that, they proclaimed that they were going to be a representative democracy. You can read that in their Constitution. You can read, and the best way to read it is in their revision of the Constitution, again, in 2016, in which they proudly talk about their representative democracy. Now, a democracy is mob rule in which the minority has no representation, right? All you have to do is, let's hang them high. I see this guy over there. You got a badge on? I think you were stealing my horse outside, and I want to see you hung. How many think we ought to hang you? Raise your hand. Oh, let's all hang her. Take her out there, and we hang her. Why? Because we had a vote, right? Everybody voted for it. Oh, but maybe a couple people didn't, and the person got hung. She didn't vote for it either, the minority. But she sure as shooting got hung, didn't she? That is a mob. That is democracy. The Founding Fathers never wanted a democracy. Never. Never in their life did they dream that the United States would become a democracy. But it's very evident that there was an outlet built into the Constitution for a moment like this, when one of the states might not fulfill its responsibility to the compact and deviate and become a democracy. And that's Article 4, Section 3 of the Constitution. Article 4, Section 3 of the Constitution. And this is what it says. It says that if you want to become a state from a pre-existing state, and we sure as heck want to become a state from a pre-existing state, right? Like California. We don't want no California government anymore, right? Right. We're all agreed on that. Well, you have to get their permission. Their permission. California state legislature's permission to do that, and then move on. Now, what is the likelihood? Let's see now. California, let's put it in perspective. California state is a one-party state. And here's the proof. The proof is you have 80 members of the assembly, 17 are Republican. That calls a supermajority. You have 40 senators of the state, and 9 are Republican. 52 members that are representatives to the House of Representatives. 9 are Republican. That's by definition a one-party state. Now let's see. California joins the ranks of the other one-party states of the world, like North Korea, Communist China, Cuba, Venezuela. Does it sound like they've got a few friends of California? In California. The former Soviet Union, the Nazi Germany, was a one-party state. So Pol Pot, one-party state. We could go on and on and on. Even Vietnam, one-party state. Totalitarianism. They knew we needed an out. That's what Article 4, Section 3 is about, because this is what happened. There became a crisis during the Civil War, and the crisis was slavery. The crisis was actually brought about by, blame it on California, yes, California. California refused to become a slave state, and what it did is in the Constitution of 1849-50, it said explicitly for the first time in human history that a state would not be pandering to slavery. It outlawed slavery outright. Before then, you had some states where, well, you can be a slave, and then after you're 15, you're not a slave. Stuff like that. But this, we really actually, the words themselves are used in our current Declaration or Constitution. We took those words, and you're using them. But now, what's happened? We've gone away from that Constitution, the compact Constitution, and we're living with a new one that's a representative democracy. So let's go back to 1861, and how this thing really blew out. The West Virginians, sensing civil war and sensing that the Confederacy was rising, were trying to stay away from the incensed insurrectionists of the South, which were clamoring for since 1850. They were still ticked off that California had a great compromise and California got to be a state that was free, and they wanted California to be free because the last state was Texas, that was a slave state, and 2 other states became free, and then California, they were all over the place. So they were ticked off like crazy. And they stayed angry, and they became more and more insurrectionists until they started to collaborate and to form a confederacy. Confederacy conferences and conventions were being held. And so the Virginia government decided that in Richmond, the Virginia government said, okay, we are going to go with the Confederacy. Now, what did they do just with that, at that point? Were they following their Constitution? Were they abiding by the insurrections of the Constitution of the United States? No, they were being insurrectionists. And in fact, what they did, they voted to leave. Little problem. They were supposed to also ask the people of Virginia on that vote. They left before that vote took place. They absented themselves from government. They abandoned their position from government. And what it meant was the West Virginians could not even remotely say, wait a minute, we're going to ask you to become a new state and go on to Congress so they could grant a statehood. We can't do that anymore because they've gone. And not only that, if you read about it, we've got people that went to West Virginia to study this. I spent hours, days, talking to people in West Virginia about this whole process, how it all worked out. The people of Virginia were shooting and killing and murdering the West Virginians because they were calling them disloyal to Virginia, the South. Now, I don't know about you, but I've had several of my friends die from the COVID virus because it was illegal for the governor to put out orders for the COVID. It was illegal. So I don't know, some of you had that same problem. And a lot of you were losing your constitutional rights not to go to church and things like that. They were stripping us away of all of our constitutional rights. How can we, as New California, remotely think that we're going to go to a monoparty state that has more inclined and more alike to communist China and then get them to say, yes, they're going to go with this? They're not going to say that. And by the way, we're at risk of doing that. So what did we do? We said we're going to follow the West Virginia model. So precedent was this. The West Virginians went to Congress and they said, we can't work with the state, Virginia, because they've absented themselves, they're no longer there, and they're killing us when they see us. And so the Congress said, well, that's too bad, so sad. You have to go and you have to somehow satisfy Article 4, Section 3 and get approval. Francis Pierpont, who was an attorney, comes back to everybody and says, well, we're all Virginians here. Nobody's West, nobody's East, nobody's Virginia. We're all Virginians here. What we need to do, absent with a government that's absent themselves, this is in the Constitution, it's called We the People. We the people can set up our own government. And they did. He asked if they would allow him to be the governor. He appointed a lieutenant governor. He got officers. They got a legislature together. And so the West Virginia group, which wasn't a government, they filled out their resolutions and they gave resolutions to the legislature of the reorganized Virginia. And guess what? Shocking. The reorganized government of Virginia passed the resolutions. And they took those resolutions passed to the Congress. And the Congress said, this is kind of hanky. We've never done this. But they decided to go with it and said, yes, it's legal. There's nobody there for them to go to. So people will tell you, oh, that Preston, that New California, they have to get permission from the legislature. No, we don't. Are we going to get permission from a legislature that wants to take your ranches right now? Your farms? They're talking about that. Do you think we're going to go to pander them? Hell no. We're standing up. And this is what it says in the Constitution to do at a time like this. Now, we did this earlier. We did this in 2018. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another and to assume among the powers of the earth. That's why the Declaration of Independence is so important. It's a real document, a real living document. It announces you as a state. The separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impede them to their separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, It is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light or transient reasons or causes, and accordingly all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable. Are we in the suffering phase here? I mean, really, are we? We're just going to take it until they kill us?
No.
We're at that phase. They're not going to do that. While evils are sufferable, then to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. So we're accustomed to this form of government. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Now, don't mess with me. That's what we're doing in New California. And you can't tell me anybody else is doing this in this nation today. Not one place is doing this except New California. And Donald J. Trump knows that. Nobody else in this state of California. James Gallagher should hear, hopefully he's hearing the speech. But you know what? You have to have something big hanging to make that all happen. That's the problem. While these things are sufferable, you're going to let yourself suffer some more? No, you have to put an end to it. That's why this phrase is here. I want to read this to you. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object that evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right and it is their duty to throw off such government. Right means responsibility, and duty means to kill the prince. That's constitutional talk. That's what we're doing in New California. Since this Declaration of Independence, we've had 13 constitutional conventions, all building to a constitution. And I think there's copies out here. It's rough. We know that. It needs more work. We know that. But we want the public to see it. We have no obligation in this process to put it out to the public. Did you know that? We have no obligation. That's the way the federal government looks at it. I don't. I think we have an obligation. No matter right, wrong, and different, I think we have an obligation to show that. Also the map and how this is all going to play out. Those are some of our obligations. But let's talk about this. We formed a legislature. I don't know how many dozens of bills. We're going to sign five bills. This is going to be one of them. 5 bills on the signing of our very first bills out of our legislature. It's taken a long time to get to these bills, and the timing can't be better because we're becoming a state soon. It's perfect timing. Now, our legislature, I'm telling you, I will not trade one person in our legislature for anybody downtown except for, what's her name? From Kern County. Can't see her face right now, but anyway, the senator from Kern County, I think you're second. She's going to shoot me because I said that. There's only a couple, and there's a couple of Republicans who have started to make a name for themselves in the California state legislature. They're all playing catch up. They're all of a sudden realizing what we're doing, and you know, they understand in the Vatican what we're doing. They understand. The Pope understands clearly what we're doing. The state of California, in the building down there, they totally understand. Why did they remove Queen Isabella? Did you know they did that? I mentioned that already. Did I tell you that story? 2021. All of a sudden, I go down and I take videos and stuff like that of Queen Isabella, and I'm thinking, why is she in here? Why is she in the rotunda of the building? She was brought in 1879 or 1881, 2 years after they adopted the 1879 Constitution. And Queen Isabella is there with Christopher Columbus. And what is happening is that all the jewels are being given to Queen Isabella and then to Columbus to symbolize the jewels that were brought by the peasants for Columbus to discover the New World. That's pretty nice, isn't it? But it also symbolizes what? A monarchy. So we've been under a monarchy since 1881, 1879, till just recently. The jig is up and they know it. So what did they do? They took out Queen Isabella from the rotunda in 2021. I got a call from I have snitches. Lots of them actually now, I'm finding out. A lot more in the Capitol building. Paul, they're taking Queen Isabella out of the rotunda. Nobody knew this. And I said, what? I wasn't even remotely thinking that they were actually doing it. No, Paul, they really are. They're taking it. And so there's a news flash that came up around 10 a.m. and they had already gotten her out and she was gone. I'm like, well, that was quick. See, I don't think they want a time like this to be explaining away why Queen Isabella is in there. I don't think they want that time because you know why? Because the royalty, all the globalists, the Rothschilds, all those people, they want this state. China wants this state. And they're going to do everything they possibly can to get this state. And their proxy governor, of course, is Gavin Newsom. And before that proxy, it was Jerry Brown. And before that, it was Arnold Schwarzenegger. Sorry for you Arnold fans, I know, but I know a lot more about Arnold than you do. You guys are done with him. that drew a little rise right there. No, I don't touch Arnold. Oh, by the way, and where is Ronald Reagan at the Capitol? They celebrate him in the basement. Right underneath where Queen Isabella was. So the question is, why aren't we elevating Ronald Reagan to where Queen Isabella was? That would be a pretty good question, doesn't it? I think I've covered Article 4, Section 3 and why we're doing that. Do you understand why? This isn't because we willy-nilly wanted to do this and ignore anything. No, we know the legislature down there. We know what was happened. We know that who they're involved with. And by the way, not one of them, but a couple, not one of them, or not very few of them, have ever spoken up about stopping child sex trafficking. Did you know that? We've gone down to the Capitol and screamed at them from the Capitol steps, pleading with them to do something about child sex trafficking. They have done nothing. They passed one lame bill which says that you can't traffic or you can't offer proposition prostitutes 15, 16, and 17. That's it. What they have done is they continue with their pedophilic behavior in writing new pedophile laws. Now, come on, people. That's what's happening with these people. You know, and the stories need to be told about what is truly going on. And now all of a sudden it's happening because, you know, somebody made a big stink about this whole redistricting thing. And in the process of making the big stink, they said, oh, there's AB 495. And they thought that was going to be some sort of diversion. No, it wasn't. Not at all. That just personified what was going on. So here they are breaking the Constitution again by ordering up these redistricting things. Now, how does redistricting work? And how come we always get two Democrats in the finals? Okay, the California Republican Party, there's about 22% of all people registered as California Republicans. Did you know that? The rest are declined to state, independents, and Democrats. Okay. So if you're a Republican and you want to vote in the primary for your Republican candidate, what do you have to do? Come on. Don't you have to be a registered Republican? That's right. Then you can vote in the primary. But if you're not a registered Republican, you can't vote in the primary for a Republican. Those are the rules, right? Okay. No crossover for you. But if you're a Republican, or excuse me, a declined to state or independent, or a Democrat, and you want to vote for a Democrat, well, declined to states and independents can vote for the Democratic side. Now, what does that do mathematically? You have 3/4 of the voting public voting on the Democrat and 22% on the Republican only. They're limited because the party says only Republicans can vote. So what chance does a Republican have? Let's see what happened. Okay, that first went into effect in 2012. In 2012, we had about 22 or 23 members of Congress that were Republicans. By 2018, we had 6. Get my drift? Now we have 9. Shocking. We raised a stink in 2018 about this. And oddly enough, in 2020, they got 11. They had 11. But Newsom didn't like that. So the next year it went down to 8. And now we've got 9, but they want to take away 5. You see how ludicrous this is? It's ludicrous. But what is Newsom doing? He's violating the Constitution. He violated the Constitution when he ordered 25 million mail-in ballots because of the COVID virus. They found it unconstitutional, the ballots that he ordered, but they rendered the decision one day before the election on November 2nd. But the corrupt election system is another story. Yes, sir?
I have a question. You just said on regards to the ballot and voting, Republican says only Republican only. So the Democrat does not say only Democrat only?
Mm-mm.
And is that set up by the legislation then? I mean,
Set up by the
that's
party.
the first time I've heard that.
Yes, yeah, I know. Listen, it's a secret. Don't tell anybody. Best kept secret around,
I
huh?
understand that you've got to be registered for the primaries.
Primary.
Or the other was my understanding. And here I'm hearing today that if you were a Democrat, you wouldn't have.
You can't vote for the
If you were
Republican.
independent, you could still vote Democrat.
Right.
Is what you're saying.
I'm saying independents and declined to states can vote Democrat, but independents and declined to states cannot vote Republican.
But they
Unless
can
they're,
vote Democrat.
they can, correct.
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
That's how come we have this little detail they don't tell you about.
I know they don't tell us about that, but how is it that our Republican Party has not fixed that in all these years? That's our own Democratic Party. Okay,
So have you ever heard of something called an epiphany?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've got that.
I know you do. I know you do. And listen, because of that, what's going to happen, you now are going to experience a number of epiphanies after I give this speech today. And that's okay. And that's good, because this is your enlightenment is growing here. This isn't about a Republican or Democrat situation. This isn't about party this, party that. This is about totalitarianism destroying a republic per se, destroying our republic. And that's why I'm trying to get personalities out and races out and just hang to the idea of republic versus democracy and what we have and what we don't have. But we don't have a republic any longer that represents. So you're just being denied your own representation, aren't you? Yeah, that's what that is. That's called being denied a Republican form of government. Right there, that's one great example. And the Republican Party lies all the time. I was in the Republican Party pretty good in from 90 to 92, and really a Reagan supporter and stuff, and I was involved with an Olympic swimmer who was always in the White House and stuff like that. So I became really with the Reagan thing. And I was always a Nixon guy. I used to do local origination TV in Yorba Linda from the Nixon Library, did that for 4 years. And got a lot of learning done on that one, I'll tell you. I learned a lot of stuff about, the Watergate and all that other stuff and all the things that Henry Kissinger never went to China on orders from Nixon. Did you know that? He just did it on his own. Well, he did it with the Rothschild help. That's a little side note. And then what happened with China? Okay, but anyway, these are some of the backroom things that are going on. My point though, is that there's a lot of stuff that happens around you, and everybody puts trust in it. And I was really putting my trust in the Republican Party in '90, really was. And I stayed with them. They wanted me to become in the Orange County Central Committee and all that stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I'm ready. You know, Republican here, Republican there, hat. You know, Reagan. You know, Nixon, and all that stuff. And I was soaking it all in. And then I saw a particular group called the Lincoln Group, Lincoln Group in Orange County, endorsed Bill Clinton. And then I started thinking, and one of the guys said to me that after we found out about this, I said, "Why is he doing that?" He says, "Well, Clinton's a liar. We need a good liar as president." Okay, and you know, but then I saw the weak campaign that was going on by George Bush, and I put two and two together, and I said that was it for the Republicans. I stayed out of it. I was really, and then I experienced the Orange County bankruptcy. I was a whistleblower in the Orange County bankruptcy in 1994, which was the collapse of the California Republican Party. That was a Cloward and Piven strategy brought to you by Bill Clinton, and that destroyed the effectiveness of the conservative Republicans in California at that time. And from 1990 to 1992, Bill Clinton had visited Orange County in Southern California twice. And after the bankruptcy, from December 4th, 94 until November 96, he visited Orange County in Southern California 28 times. And he was solidifying all the unions to do all the government voting. And that's where we're at today with all of those unions. Charles Munger Jr., SEIU, all that stuff was solidified. By that time, there's a whole bunch of chaos going on in the legislature because they put in term limits. Legislature was thrown into chaos because they lost their institutional knowledge on how to pass bills. Remember I said, what do we have in here? A brain trust. You're the institutional knowledge about the Constitution. Now imagine if I've got a bunch of, 18-year-olds in here who don't know anything about the Constitution. I'm trying to talk about Constitution. And I mentioned Jesus Christ and Lord and God and all that stuff, like, have no clue. They have no connected. You guys have the connected. You're the other part. See, we've got Charlie Kirk over here with the kids, and we've got us. We got the gray hairs. I think everybody needs to color their hair gray now. Just be obvious. Come on, ladies, gentlemen. Come on. Be proud. I had stage 5 cancer, and my hair was always white before. And then I took chemotherapy just to have a little fun on top of that for 13 months. And every day I kept looking in the mirror like, I'm not losing my hair. I'm not losing my hair. I'm going, who's that guy? And by the end, I had brown hair. It was all coming back, brown hair. And I thought, wow, who's this dude? Lost 140 pounds, Yeah. But my point is that once all that started to happen, then you started to see the reshaping of what was going on with the elections and so on in California until they brought in, then they started bringing in the machines. They brought in the machines in California in around 1998. And it was, what's his name? Kevin Shelley, who was the Secretary of State. He's the first whistleblower who blew the whistle on ES&S machines or Diebold machines, computer machines, and said the 1993 elections were bogus. He decertified the machines because why? They were getting computerized messages and algorithms from Venezuela. Now, I don't know how many ships we have off the coast of Venezuela right now, but let's see. Let's go to 2020, and we know that what happened with California was won by Donald Trump, if you work the algorithms, with 15,600,000 votes. 16,600,000 votes. 15,600,000 votes to Biden's 4,600,000 votes. That's if you work the algorithm with the base numbers, the numbers that they give you. That's what it comes out to. And we have a whole thing. I sued the state of California, Governor Newsom, and also Alex Padilla, because we wanted to find out what went on with all that stuff, plus some other things. So we filed a lawsuit. We were trying to shorten time and get the lawsuit seen before a judge so they could perhaps suspend and not allow California's 55 votes to be counted on January 6th. And the courts deliberately stalled us. They deliberately stalled us. We finally got a hearing in April. And after we got the hearing in April, the judge took 10 days to decide whether or not to drop our case, because we dropped the nuclear bomb. And we told her, well, you know, we do have the evidence that shows that Donald Trump won California with 15 million plus votes. And the judge is like going, oh my God. And it took her 10 days to decide to drop it. So she dropped it. 2 days later, the Secretary of State signs the certification for those votes. Who was that person? Shirley Weber, not Alex Padilla.
Yeah, he wasn't going to sign it.
No, he's an attorney. He knows what perjury is all about. And boy, we tried to serve him with subpoenas.
Oh.
He was running so scared. Yes, ma'am.
What you're sharing and teaching us about is just fascinating. There's got to be another word besides epiphany at this point. The concern that I hope this relates is the Prop 50 coming up. Is this off topic?
The what?
The Prop 50 coming up. Is this off topic?
Oh,
We're talking about corruption, really. And
Yeah.
I'm concerned that just like 36, we're going to overwhelmingly.
Well, here's my philosophy on Prop 50. One of the things that we know, and this is from our intelligence people, and this is stuff that we give to the president because we had our ways, and the Kash Patel and those folks. I believe that what they're going to do is they're going to run this election with the machines, and they're just going to, and everybody's going to pummel Prop 50, and boom, it's done. They have to have, with these machines, the globalists, they have to have an election in which they can win more Democrats in the House and the Assembly so that they can impeach Donald Trump in the second term. Okay? That is their top priority. That is their top priority. And the county clerk recorders are in on it. Everybody's in on it. Not everybody. I don't think you're super. Where'd he go? He disappeared. They always have to leave when I start talking. And that's okay. I get it. No disrespect going on here. I'm glad. I love the fact he was here, by the way. He has strong courage to be here, and that's what he's an honorable person. But my point is that most of the elected people in office do know this. They know they're not elected. The Mexican cartel runs the elections. When they set up the reorganization committees, that's why I listen to these people talk about the committees on redistricting. There were two of them. One was run in 2008, and that was for state offices so that they could gerrymander and set up districts and so on. And the next one was for federal offices so they could take care of the House of Representatives, right? So you had the state in 2010 and you had the federal in 2000, two branches of this so-called Citizens Committee. They're stacked with Democrats. They're stacked with Joe Blow's buddy and all that. Plus, we caught them when they were doing public presentations by Zoom or by video presentations to Guajardo, Mexico.
Can this be stopped?
Well, we complained about it.
But it's like, it just seems like the bad guy is always, which we know in the end with this battle anyway, is always, 2 steps ahead.
Well, actually,
that's my frustration.
Oh, yeah. And that's why I guess I'm here, to make you more frustrated. What I'm here for is to pass along the truth. so that you're forewarned and you're armed, and now you have answers. And you see what this election is for. This election is to throw us bait and keep us happy so that we're not going to question what kind of machines are you using in the primary for 2026. Get it? That's the whole plan. It's a decoy. And we're, oh gosh, see, we did it with the machines and it worked beautifully, 100%. Okay, come on. These things this takes 7 days to count the ballots. Okay, so Alpine County. How many people are in Alpine County? 12, okay, 12. And it takes them how many days to count the ballots there? 27 after the election. Okay, so this is the way it is in California. Mail-in ballots come to you. Now keep thinking Carl DeMaio here. Keep thinking about Carl. Okay, Carl is a member of the House Assembly. He also has several nonprofits that he runs and operates, one of them a recall thing or something like that. That's just here and there. So you think Carl DeMaio. You have 29 days in which you can get a ballot mailed to you. Okay? No chain of custody, complete loss of custody. The ballot is probably handled maybe by 100 hands just through the mailing process. So it comes to you. Now, okay, it's in your hands and you vote and you send it in. It goes through another 100 hands. There's no chain of custody there. None. Zero zip. You don't know what's happening to your ballot. It could be lost. It could end up in a dumpster. It could end up in a fire. Something could happen and you never vote. Or better yet, you decide I'm going to hang on to my ballot and I'm going to go down to the poll and I'm going to vote. Darn it, I'm going to surrender. The person looks at it and says, "Oh, you can't vote. You already voted. You can't vote twice." What? I didn't. 80,000 people were disenfranchised in 2022 in Riverside County alone in 3 or 4 precincts, because all the people who walked in with their ballot could not do it. 80,000. And then in Los Angeles, they had about another 150. I mean, it was all over the place, just completely disenfranchised. Oh, you can't vote twice. Well, I haven't voted at all. Here's my ballot. Well, I'm sorry, we're not going to let you vote. You want a proxy vote or whatever they call it? Yes.
Excuse my voice. To clarify, you're saying that you're guessing that Prop 50 will fail, but it won't make any difference because the actual voting is so crooked.
Yeah. And I think it's an exercise in futility because they're ultimately going to say in this Supreme Court, in this legal system of ours, that it's unconstitutional what he did. And you might get that. Even so-called they do win, the judge will say it's unconstitutional.
So you need to work on voting integrity.
Voting integrity. Some people work a little too long on it. And ignorance, right. They work really ignorantly on voting integrity, yes.
The voters are ignorant, but I think our biggest hurdle nationwide is there's too many people that are financially dependent on every other government.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
So that's going to take a while to
And a lot of that depends upon who gets in as a vote, too. That's the other, and who, as the vote goes through the process. But that's our thinking right now. They're going to try and prove that the machines are okay. Nothing to see here. Move along. Now we have voted, and how many voted in here? Didn't our own vote here the last time? New California. Was that simple or what? That's the way it's supposed to be. I mean, we're going to be a little bit more complicated. The next ballot's going to have 4 or 5 things on it, and the one that comes up in November is going to have several more things, including the map for the final time. Nothing for the final Constitution. We're going to be making some changes and adjustments and stuff like that, as we've said we're going to do, in transparency. And then we're going to do them, and you're going to see them, and then we're going to take that and give that to the president, who's going to give that to Congress as part of our bid to become a state. And then Congress is going to look at it, and they will make some adjustments. In fact, a good adjustment to see, go back and look at the admissions bill that was written for California, because it's just happened 175 years ago. Anniversary was on the 9th. And they printed it in many places, but it shows in there a change that actually was made to the Constitution about slavery for West Virginia, or for California. And about the West Virginia one, I'm sorry, it changed that. It was West Virginia, when you take a look at their admissions bill, they have a clause in there that about slavery and how it's going to happen and why it's going to happen. They agreed upon that in Congress with the people from Virginia, so therefore that becomes part of their Constitution. That's how that works. So you can't get away from that. Then it becomes a compact, and that's where it's an enduring document. Now, because it is a compact, and this was what the Civil War was all about, the Union will last forever because of sovereign borders. Now, every one of you, and it tells you right in here, that you have God-given rights, right? Which puts you in charge of government. You have the Holy Spirit about you. You have the authority of God. How many have ever thought of that before in that way? Good for you. And now all of you should think that way. The government officials should have the holy crap scared out of them because of you and your Holy Spirit, right? And they should fear you. Right now, that's not the case, is it? They have no respect for us. They have no respect. And that's because they are in charge, and that's never the way it's supposed to be. So that's what this Declaration of Independence is all about. It's telling us that. We can take that authority back, and that's what we're doing now constitutionally. And that's why they fear us. That's why they took out the statue. In the state of California building, in all branches of the government, if you know somebody, ask them this question. What would happen, have you ever been told by your boss that if the state of New California comes up not to talk about it in the building? Did you know that they're not allowed to talk about the state of New California in any of those buildings in Sacramento? Did you know that? If that...
Jerry was out. I have a feeling I know a little bit about it.
I'll get you in a second. Okay, so we have several members down there in Sacramento who live down there, and they have neighbors who work inside. I have people that I know. Okay, my wife was a lobbyist for 38 years in California. I know everything, just about everything.
Your representative Heather Hadwick, last time they were in Sacramento, she was outside, and she walked in and she told her whole staff, and they all came out and saw what was going on.
Good.
Yeah, we've been working with Heather.
Yeah, I know you have. I watched her on TV, actually. I was going to call you.
Yeah, I sent her all kinds of stuff.
And the staff came out.
We used to teach. Yeah, her staff didn't know anything about New California, so she said, "Go out and find out."
And that's because they've been told not to talk about it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I have to ask Heather.
Yeah, and ask Deborah, and ask Karen Penny, and ask everybody else who's been down there. And I'll tell you, they were told when we were down there. We had a woman who came out. She was kind of bundled around a little bit. She came out and she says, "You don't seem to understand the other part of this. The other part is if New California comes up on a computer screen, we're not supposed to look different. We're just supposed to remove it off of our screen and move on."
What's the next phase? That lady that was just talking to me wants to know
What's next?
yeah.
God, you know,
That's my question.
okay, let me ask you this. When was the last time you made a state?
What?
A state?
When I made a statement, working on that. But my question is, you have 20 other million people out there that we need on board
Right.
to make this a constitutional state once again and to get this message to them. I realize that a handful of us here can start passing this on, but on the big picture of things, what is in place and how is this moving forward at a, when I say timely manner, I'm not necessarily, I am in a hurry, but obviously.
Well, I'm really in a hurry.
But what is it that's moving this movement forward here?
Well, you are. Yeah.
Besides us.
No, and a lot of other people too. There is a movement afoot. It's a bigger movement. We have actually for a number of reasons, said we're down low. We're not going to rise up. We're not going to seek publicity. It'll come to us in the time it's supposed to come to us. And so far, that's all of a sudden starting to happen in a big way. We know that. We've been told to prepare. You're listening to what's happening right now in Congress. The exchange with Kash Patel the other day, he kind of blew it a little bit. He says they're pouring all kinds of all their assets are in California. They said, I can tell you this right now that the FBI is in this county, looking for with Donald Trump's eyes. They're in every county looking with Donald Trump's eyes. You just don't know it, but they're reporting, and they're getting data, they're getting information, and quite frankly, there's going to be big change, and it's coming soon. We're part of that change, and things will move very quickly. When you have regime change, it moves in hours. It doesn't move in weeks, and that's what will probably happen in this situation. The president will, I believe, when the president marks that he's suspending habeas corpus in California on certain judges, game over for California. When they announced the arrest of Gavin Newsom, game over for California. When they arrest a number of people, game over for California. And New California will be here. That's what will happen. It'll be very sudden, but it will happen. Now, if we had been out publicity raising, going crazy and all that stuff, what would happen was they would crush us like a bug early on. Yes, sir. And elections. Yes, sir.
So this pamphlet here is distributed throughout northern and
all California, right?
California. I mean, we're going to start seeing these like flies.
Right.
Because
Was that the last one?
This is for Lassen County, but
Right.
obviously we need the other counties.
The
to do
elections,
the
yeah.
same thing.
All
So we should be seeing a bunch of these.
My wife's cousin the other day opened up in the morning MSNBC, and on the front of that report was an article about New California State. I went, "You're kidding." He goes, "No." I said, later on, I said, "Send it to me." He couldn't find it. But it was there. I went, MSNBC?
right.
No.
Yeah. No, it's
That was last week.
and well, there's more. MSNBC, the UK did one. Joe Hoff did another one on the map. Joe Hoff from Gateway Pundit. We've been in the Gateway Pundit and joehoff.com for many times. He's a big friend, a big fan. He's pushing the president. We got a lot of people pushing the president. I've been able to be on cell phone conversations with many people in the room at the time when I'm talking. And it's quite an honor. It really is.
And having you here for myself, I speak probably for the rest of us,
Yeah, we definitely thank you to get the message
to
out.
have you. here.
Well,
For me, Paul and I have been trying to do something here in Lassen County, and my best friend who passed away about 3 weeks ago, he and I came down here and met with your sheriff. We served papers on your elections people. I had 4 different people that wanted to promote New California State for one reason or another. Never happened, and we're just going, what's going to happen? And then your sister. So that's why I'm here. I've been trying to get something happen. This is wonderful, absolutely wonderful. I'm from Modoc County, and my goal is to tell people about New California State so that when it hits, they won't go, "What's this?" Because there are so many of
Right.
the Jefferson State people, and it's like I want them to know about this. So Paul and I met at a pizza parlor.
yeah, that's right.
In
In
Shasta County,
yeah.
a round table pizza place. And at that meeting was Ron and Patty Plum, who have championed New California State in Shasta for years, and good friends. And this is just exciting to have things like this.
Patty was our first delegate to go to Washington, D.C. with
Josh.
she and Josh Disney, and then we've sent 2 other delegations to Washington, D.C. to talk to the legislators. We can't talk to California Republicans. The way it is that they're just either saturated with the Jefferson idea, which is going to go it's going nowhere. No matter what the hype or hoopla, it's dead in the water. It's a great learning what they did was very good in terms of learning and getting people excited about the idea of statehood. But you can't do what they did, and it's not right, and it failed. It was one of the failures. We haven't failed. Failure is not an option for us, folks. I went to Germany in 1992 to study the collapse of communism, and I saw what communism was all about. I studied about Adolf Hitler. I went to the Fuhrer bunker. I traveled all around Berlin studying about him and seeing how he could possibly escape the Fuhrer bunker and get away and then reestablish himself in Argentina. At the time, I didn't know. In fact, I was talking to a guy by the name of Christoph Neubauer. I was told to go talk to him by Roger Thoreau of the Wall Street Journal, who was the Eastern European correspondent when I was at the Olympics. So I traveled all the way back to Berlin, second time, and talked to him. And he told me about the escape of Adolf Hitler. I was not a believer. I said, "Oh, this guy's wacko. Come on, he died. So he shot himself in the head. Everybody knows that, right?" And then I was kind of tangentially thinking about it over the years because I was that focused on trying to stop the collapse, trying to stop communism from coming in. That's why I went there, to learn about communism and the collapse of communism and all the things that were involved. And I was carrying it into my educational world, into the schools, into administration. I could see what was happening. And so by 2000, I started a radio show in 1999 called the Inside Education Show to talk about this. That's how long I've been doing this. It started in local origination TV. That all took place with the Nixon Library. So I had a pretty good background in all that stuff. And then fast forward to 2009, I think it was. I was in my studio. It was late at night, about 1:30 in the morning, and I've got George Norrie on and all that stuff. And I'm listening to this guy talk about Hitler, this, that, and the other. I wasn't even focused. And finally, I went to bed, and the radio's still on. And I sat right up and I said, "Wait a minute, time out. This guy's talking about what I know." There's probably only 2 or 3 people in the world who knew that. So I got on the phone at 2 o'clock. The show was over, and I called KFI, and I said, "I got to talk to this guy." And I blurted out some things about Christoph Neubauer. And 2:15, Peter Levenda called me. And he's the guy who came out with the facts that the evidence was overwhelming that Adolf Hitler escaped the bunker. And he reestablished a German government, the Fourth Reich. Well, he didn't establish, it was still under the Third Reich. But he reestablished it so that he could invade the United States from the south. Go watch the series Hunting Hitler. He did not die in Argentina. He did not. He died in Sarajevo, Indonesia. All the gold from Germany is in Indonesia. All of Yamashita's gold is in Indonesia. And I listen to this. There is a person in the new California state movement who discovered the gold of Yamashita on behalf of the U.S. government. And I will not ever tell you who it is. But I was like, I got goosebumps. You know who it is. You don't even know, but you know. You've met the person. Yeah. But anyway, so this whole thing with Adolf Hitler, they all swore they were trying to destroy America even after the war. They were trying to build a nuclear bomb. They're going to drop that on New York City. And if you saw the whole thing, you'll understand what I'm talking about. They actually had a nuclear bomb ready to go, just about, and they would have done it. The other part was the invasion from the south. Now, the invasion from the south just took place with Biden. Yeah. And I've known that for all these years. I've talked about it, that it was going to happen, and it happened. And who was responsible for that invasion? A whole network of churches. Now, Peter Levenda wrote the definitive book on Adolf Hitler in the Hunting Hitler series. He says it's not his series, but it's absolutely his series. And like I said, Adolf Hitler did not die. Sean, one of the radio guys, Sean, the Navy SEAL or whatever he was, he's always Sean Ryan. Yeah, he was on the Hunting Hitler series. And I haven't talked to him yet. I'm going to talk to him because he knows stuff I know, and I know stuff he doesn't know yet. because I've seen the series, and I had traveled some of the places that he talked about, and it's kind of interesting. This is a very interesting story if you saw the history. A relative of mine was a prima donna ballerina, and was and trained in European style ballet, and she was a world renowned person. And in this Hunting Hitler series, there's a portion in Hunting Hitler series where Hitler wants to see. He's in Argentina, but he wants to see a ballet. So they wanted to track whether or not this actually took place. Was there a ballet, and did he go? Right. So they went to the town. I don't remember if it's in Bolivia or where it was. They went to this place where they had a big enough theater where they could have a ballet. And so they started checking all the records to verify if that was Hitler who was there. And that story was true, because if that story was true, then it proved that Hitler was there doing certain things militarily and so on. And so sure enough, they go to the library and they look through all the old newspapers and they pull out an ad. And they find this ad with this prima donna ballerina on it, and they're looking at it. You can see this in the movie. So my wife and I go and visit our relative. And there on the wall is a picture of that ad. I'm like going, no. So I called a relative of mine and I said, have you seen this? And he goes, no. And he saw the movie. He called me. I don't believe this. So I need to tell Sean that. That's like a Sean story. Just those little nuggets come, and you find out the verification of Hitler surviving, is my point. And we're living in that legacy right now. If it feels like it's Hitlerian right now, it is. The Fourth Reich started January 1st, 1971, because they pledged that the Fourth Reich would start the next January after Hitler died. And he died in 1970 in Indonesia. He did not die in Argentina. And the reason why, and Sean, they're pushing the Argentina thing because they don't want any attention brought to Indonesia. And the story begins in Indonesia. And I'm not going to get into that right now, but if you pick up the book Hunting Hitler, the Rat Line, how the Catholic Church got all the Germans out of Germany after World War II, pick that up. And also the Hitler Legacy, that's a companion book. Peter Levender wrote it. It explains everything and ties into everything we're experiencing today, all the way to the psyops, to the assassinations, to all the things that we're experiencing. This is a spiritual war. Let's be clear. This is a spiritual war. One of the things I got to do is a video or an interview of Newt Gingrich. This is 2019. And, I'm a rank amateur at this whole state thing. I don't know what I'm doing making a state. Heck, I'm doing it. It's every day. It's a new thing, right? Was this what I'm supposed to do today? Okay, maybe that'll be good. And you do the same thing. We're all doing this because who's made a state in here? Last time a state came about was 1959. And the last time this happened was 1861 during the Civil War. Well, this is a war right now. It hasn't gotten to the shooting phase yet. But it's about to go kinetic. You kind of get those things. But my point is that when he passed away and all this information started to come out about where he was, they were very uncomfortable with the Argentina connection. It was way too political to have it out about Indonesia, because that would track it to the gold. And Indonesia runs on that gold right now. What is running the world right now? What gold stocks is coming from Indonesia?
Did any come from the Vatican?
A lot of it.
Like 600.
A lot of that's Vatican dollars too. Vatican gold. Right.
Well, Laura Logan, that's her thing. We are in World War III.
Right.
It's the narrative that it's happening,
yeah.
But it's not at the shooting stage yet.
Yeah. Laura Logan. We know Laura. She's a good friend in New California. I just saw her a couple weekends ago. Yeah, she's a great friend. I got to tell you this story. I don't know if this really happened or not, but somebody told me this happened. And I was speaking at the Ahern. I got the chance to speak with Flynn and all these other guys about New California and what things we talked about New California and insurrection and stuff. And I gave this speech, and in fact, here is the speech part that I gave actually. But so I was asked to speak about California and about insurrection and what we're dealing with from a constitutional standpoint. So 15 minutes. Well, listen though, 15 minutes. This is hysterical. They gave me 15 minutes to talk. Well, how long have I been talking now? 2 hours? Yeah, only 2 hours. I'm a 3-hour man. I go 3 hours all the time in the morning, right? So the radio. Well, yeah, something like that. Something like that. So anyway, I was told, oh, you only get 15 minutes. And I went, 15 minutes? I can't do diddly in 15 minutes. So anyway, it was really funny because I was up there speaking. Well, I was asked to speak, so I got to speak, and I had no idea what I was going to say, but I did listen to David Clemens. Okay, there's a lot of great people in the world, and I'm going to say this with great sincerity. You need to learn about David Clemens. Everything you can learn about David Clemens. He is Charlie Kirk. He is the real adult version of Charlie Kirk. Okay? And I'm saying that lightly because there's a lot more to David. And maybe someday you'll find out. He's an awesome human being. He is a major critical part of what we're doing for liberty. So he came in at the Ahern. This was a convention called, what was it called? The Vindicated. Vindicated. We've been vindicated. Yes, sir.
Are you referring to the one that's North Dakota State representative? Or is it different?
David Clemens is from New Mexico.
So it's a different.
David Clemens, right, different one. And so Vindicated, this was run by the Hoff brothers and Gateway Pundit. And so they invited me to speak about the insurrection things. And it was about one of the things in the speeches that we gave down there at the Capitol, because it fit into what the narrative was going forward. And so the day before, David Clemens spoke. Now, David Clemens is really big on presidential power. He's an attorney, a former prosecutor. He was actively involved with the J6. He made a movie. He was fired. He was arrested. The whole 9 yards. So it was his time to be vindicated. But he's a fabulous author. We traveled together the whole state, bringing his message. And he got up and spoke. And when he spoke, he talked about the president. And he spoke to the president. Says, you need to declare that you're getting rid of habeas corpus, and you're going to take this on as an executive and do the things you need to do. That was the ultimate of his speech. As a constitutionalist, you can do this. And so as the speakers would go on, it was a lot of hoopla and hype and all that. And I said to myself, well, what the hell am I going to say? I have 15 minutes. Right? David had 30. I think he went 40. So speaking about Laura Logan, I love Laura Logan. It was wonderful to see her again. We were hugging all over the place and everything, because she was the guest speaker at her 10th Constitutional Convention, and laid it all out. I wanted her to give the presentation about the fifth dimensional war that we're in right now, and then she talked about it. She blew us all away. So she's moderating the whole thing, and so I said to her, I said, Laura, 15 minutes, and she just looked at me. You can do it, Paul. That's what she said. I'm going 15 minutes. So anyway, it was just hysterical. So I get up, and I knew what I was going to. This is the way God works with me. I have the ideas, but I get up and speak, and it comes out. Does that make sense? I don't know how that works, but it was all about this particular topic, and I'll kind of lay it on you. This was our last declaration of default for the state of New California. You can see that's on, and print this out. We wrote 190 grievances and read 190 grievances. Many of them in the snow. In the snow. They got a beautiful courthouse up there, though. Beautiful building. Anyway, and around the state of California to declare our grievances against the state of California. Now, I'm going to read this. This is in the back. This is in the back of every one of our grievances or our declarations, and this is what it says. Well, a little bit different.
So my wife is watching right now at home. She had surgery this week, and she has clapping hands, David Clements.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
CLEMENTS. Clements.
Okay, this is for Noel. Okay, this is like the back page, but if you go to our grievances and just pull one up, you'll see all these words. We've been saying these words since 2018. Okay, this is what we say about California. It says, in New California State, we echo the thoughts and convictions, principles, and ideals of the founders of the United States of America. We, the people, will retain our humanity, our natural and unalienable rights, and our autonomy, free from the shackles of slavery to any form of government. The overt nature of the insurrectionist is a lust for control of every aspect of the lives of we the people, which is openly on display, as it is clear their intent is to create a second civil war and destroy the United States of America. Now, this line here, these lines are said in every one of our 190 plus another 26 acts of secession. The California government, in conjunction with a socialist state executive instituted wherever the current socialist governor dictator has usurped power, has actively engaged in acts of secession and have created a reign of terror on the United States citizens living in California state with the intent to secede from the Union of States, the United States of America, and to thus destroy the very Union of States which secures our liberty and our freedom. I'll explain the words in a minute. Abdication of authority. This is the only time we've said this, and this is what the president is contemplating. This paragraph, I want you to pay attention. Betrayal by the sitting pusillanimous socialist governor dictator of California. The monoparty legislature and local elected officials is evidence of abdication of their responsibilities of authority and sovereignty over the citizens of the United States living in California state. The state of California has abdicated in fact. There is no government of California. In 1879, they formed a corporation doing business as the state of California. There is no actual government of California. This will ring true what my next sentence is. The leaders are just actors standing in place, and you have agents standing in place without the authority of the citizens of California. Isn't that true? That's a fact, isn't it? That's an undeniable fact. In addition, they have abandoned the United States and California's original Constitution. Most egregious of all, California leaders abandoned the original Act of Cession of 1850 with the United States Congress and is a breach of the compact. That compact we talked about, they breached it. While the state of California remains in the Union, the government is not constitutional as approved in the 1849 by Congress. This breach of the compact is in direct violation of Article 4, Section 4, and Article 6 of the United States Constitution. California is now in non-state status. But the compact endures because the boundaries were laid out by we the people. That means God has got the boundaries for us. And we're protected by that. That's why we have this enduring California going on. But it's up to us, we the people, to fix it, isn't it? And we have a solution. It's what happened in West Virginia. And, you know, here's the other aspect, the financing and everything. California has run amok. It's really, they're just skipping from one month to another, barely making payroll and everything else. And there's no end in sight for this. The only end, they have not presented auditable financials on time since 2017. The only state in the union not to do that. We have a double A credit situation, double A plus or something like that. We can't borrow a dime. That's one of our problems. California cannot borrow a dime because we haven't paid bills. We haven't given up the auditable financials. It's the first thing. Plus, there are at least 7 major items federally that the president can stop the payments on, can cease the payments, and just get rid of it or slow the payments. He can do that because why? There are so many violations of federal law that have been violated by the state of California that the federal government will no longer look at California and bail it out. That's why California has to split. It has to split. It has to split so that new California, which will come in with new credit, fresh constitution, Republican form of government, to rebuild not only New California or make New California, but to rebuild California financially. That's what we're here for. We're here not to destroy California. We're here to make California great again. But it's going to have to be different. And they've made their own bed. They're going to lay in it. We're going to let those who want to lay in it, lay in it. You know, I used to, my college football coach used to yell at us, quit laying around like a bunch of pigs, get up and run with the studs, you know. That comes to mind. You know, we want to be there with the state and be a strong state, not just New California standing up and being a strong state and the best state in the union. No, we're not after that. We're after 2 strong states and strengthening the union. That's what this is about. We're not trying to subvert people into communism. No. We're stopping this communism business right now. We're stopping the Hitlerian stuff right now. Those that are bringing it to us, they're scattering right now. They know what's happening. Why do you think they took out that statue? They knew game was over when we declared independence and how we did it. They knew God was with us. They knew that we had invoked that. And the totalitarians who came up with the 1879 Constitution, the corporation, they're going, we can't compete with that. And they can't. They're doing everything they can to make a big fuss and delay it, but they can't compete with that. This is our prayer. The state of California, first of all, has no lawful government by the standards of the 1849 California State Constitution and the Constitution of the United States of America. This is our prayer, and we prayed this prayer since 2018. The citizens of New California State pray for the military to exercise its authority under the continuity of government and the Insurrection Act of 1807 to initiate the military's use of martial law and create the reorganized government of California as requested by the New California State to end the tyranny being foisted upon us and upon the United States of America. We've been saying that since 2018, January. And what is the president doing?
Are we technically under a continuity of government right now?
Yes, and he did that. He did that in 2000. Right, now you're getting it. Now you're getting it. Now, see, I got goosebumps. Some people are relating to what happened out there. Right, okay, all right. That's why he did what he did. So I got goose. You can come up here. Rub my arms. I got goosebumps. So, I mean, now they're coming back again in waves, so something's happening here. So this is the conclusion. This concludes these proceedings. But this is a statement. As the framers, Adams and Madison stated, Remember, democracies never last long. It soon wastes, exhausts, and murders itself. There was never a democracy yet that did not commit suicide. That's John Adams. Madison said, democracies have been found incompatible with personal security or the rights of property, and in general been as short in their lives as they have been violent in their deaths. So, what I read to the group, and the reason I gave this speech, and I'll read this last paragraph. This was the accusation. In order to have change in government that's illegal and unconstitutional, you have to have these folks. And that's what the Insurrection Act is about, 1807. This is a state declaring that they're insurrectionists in the state. That's New California. And this state is listening. The world listened. And that's what the chaos is all about right now. The insurrectionists have been found out, and they're being called out as we speak. New California State has been warning Americans for over 8 years about the California insurrectionists. Gavin Newsom, Alex Padilla, Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff, Ted Lieu, Kamala Harris, Javier Becerra, Jerry Brown, Shirley Weber, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Karen Bass, numerous California county clerk recorders, California state legislature, and the list is growing. Yes, these are just a few of the California insurrectionists who have brought the Golden State to the verge of state secession. You can read it, you can all say it, we can all admit to it, state secession. Not since the Civil War of 1861 and 1865 have these words been said, so used, and so misunderstood by the people. But the insurrectionists know exactly what they're doing and where they want the United States to go. Most people, when they read these words, don't have any idea what they mean. The historical consequences of the use of these words in the context of recent events and the damage these words and their continued use tied into the insurrectionist behavior will do to the United States is overwhelming. The Founding Fathers knew too well what these words and allied behaviors by those who were enemies of the United States. And we're using those words a lot now. Treason, insurrection, all this stuff is coming up. For good reason. Because there's treason, there's insurrection, and all the other aligned words with it. So, but getting back to Laura, I got to ask her this. Laura Logan. So I'm giving my speech. It's supposed to be 15 minutes. So I see Laura, and I'm giving my speech, and I see Laura scamper from one side of the stage to the other and pick something up from Mike Flynn's wife. Now, I'm talking, and I'm thinking, and talking at the same time. That's a big deal for me. You know, and so I never put anything. So I watched somebody, I think it was Tiffany, my scheduler. She said, "Have you seen this?" So she showed the video that was being taken from the table where she was taking the video. She took a video of the thing. And she saw Laura Logan do the same thing. And it looked like Laura Logan had picked up the time cards because Mike Flynn's wife was popping up 2 minutes left, 1 minute left. I never saw those cards. She held them. I don't know that for a fact.
I'll ask.
You ask, all right. I don't know that for a fact, but I was saying to myself, because I was told I got 16 minutes. I count 18 minutes on the timer. So, but no, they were just hammers. It's got to be 16 minutes, 15 minutes. So, anyway, one couple more things I just want to mention very quickly, because I got to ask about the ranches really quick. County senators. One of the biggest things we're doing is we play in every county that we chartered. There's always a senator placed in the county. We're challenging Reynolds versus Sims. Okay, Reynolds versus Sims, which was literally, I think, a communist plan to get rid of the Republican form of government at the state level. and that senators would no longer represent counties. In the 1793 year, when they were discussing the Constitution, they ran into a little bit of a problem about having three branches of government. And they said, yeah, we got three branches of government. We got a House of Representatives, and we have representatives. We have an executive branch and a judiciary. And then somebody, I think it was South Carolina, said, well, it's kind of odd because, in South Carolina, we don't have the population that's the same as what you have up there in New York. New York has a population, and I don't know how many 500,000, and we got a population of 5,000. So we get two senators or two members of the House, and they get 50. And so everybody's kind of like you guys look at me like, so what? There's something wrong there, right? Because every time South Carolina wants to introduce a bill, and New York doesn't like them for some reason because they're a slave state, and they're not, they're not going to get anything through, right? So is that fair to South Carolinians? No. And so they argued about that and said, well, what's wrong with that? Well, what's wrong with it is that's a democracy, right? That is a democracy. So they said, okay, how do we fix that? Benjamin Franklin came up with the fix. He said, what we'll do, regardless of the population of the state, we'll give every state two senators. In the Senate, there'll be a bicameral, not a unicameral, a bicameral legislature. So inside the box for the legislature, you've got a Senate and you've got a House of Representatives. One for the people, one for the resources and the behaviors and everything else of a state. And they would have equal power. And that way, whatever they passed in the House of Representatives, regardless of where it was, you always had the Senate that had to approve it before it became a bill. Does that make sense? Pardon me? That's not the Electoral College. That's just a regular bill being passed. That's called bicameralism. And when the states started to form, they formed into counties. Remember, there's borders and regions and sovereignty, because it's sovereignty that we're after. And the issue of the county sheriffs, as an example, is a classic one. And I'll read this bill that we have here. I think I will if I have it. But anyway, so the idea of sovereignty of the county was very important. So a senator was assigned by the states for every county. Now, at the time when we formed, we had 40 counties and we had 40 senators. That was part of our ability to be a Republican form of government, which gave us the what do you call it, compact. Okay. Problem was Reynolds versus Sims comes along, and Reynolds versus Sims by a leftist, Earl Warren, the same guy who did the commission for Kennedy. Earl Warren was the chief judge, and he passed Reynolds versus Sims, and he said that no more will senators represent the county, but they'll represent people. So senators in states will have to be represented in districts of people. So California technically has 40 million people. They have 40 senators. But what does that do for like Dolly, isn't he your senator up here? She? Okay, and she's got 10 other counties to worry about. Does she have more than that? Does that make sense? So that doesn't make any sense from a Republican standpoint. So we're challenging that, Reynolds versus Sims. And we're going in with senators. And we're going in as a state, and they're not going to stop us. This is what we, the people, want to do. And we will override the Supreme Court decision. Because we can. And, this has been a big stranglehold on lack of representation all along. This answers the Jefferson question, by the way. Because they were really big on that, which is to their credit. Good. But they didn't know how to execute this part of it. This part of it's hard work. I mean, it's a massive, we're on a massive scale because we got 58 counties and 40 million people. And most of them don't know about this yet. But you know what? They're going to learn. They can learn the hard way and have a revolution and have shooting people and that sort of thing. Or they can have a government that's brought in, that's already here, and make a smooth transition. A peaceful transition is what we're looking for, to a new government that's going to be Republican in its form. So that's Reynolds versus Sims. We bring that back. That's a big deal. Also, the current status, I'll tell you about that. Current status is that we are doing a lot of research and information. We actually have a Doge branch now. We've opened it up, and we have been Doge. Have you been on any of the Doge things? It's the corruption. The corruption is unbelievable. I mean, I am just stunned because now I'm having to think about this. The trillions of dollars. Okay, let's go to the EDD. Remember the EDD during the COVID? The EDD, there was nearly $800 billion funneled, laundered from the federal government through the state of California over to China. That's almost $1 trillion. Now, okay, that's $1 trillion. But listen, no, that's chump change compared to what's been going on that scale. There's other trillions of dollars out there. The USAID business, all that stuff, the NGOs. You know, we run a 501c4 NGO. Our operating expenses are hand to mouth. We don't have big donors. Most of the time, like right now, the donor is in this wallet right here. Okay, most of the time. That's okay, I don't mind. But you run out of money and then you go, holy shit. But what God looks after us. We projected at one time to do this and pull this off as $85 million. We have yet to even reach $2 million in 8 years of income and expenses. Now, I had a big lesson taught to me years ago because I was thinking, oh, we can get all these millions and we can do this and we can do that. No, we can't. We can't do this with all that money. We can't relate at the personal level of what it really takes to make a state. And we've been doing that a long time, and it's working. I learned that one person at a time is very important. I went to Germany to study the collapse of communism. It was Roger Thoreau who said, Paul, you're on the wrong track. I spent the first month cruising around East Germany, and I saw a lot of deserted, burned out buildings, bombed out buildings, because they never repaired East Germany after the war. They left it in a state of decay. And I said, all the people were hiding from me. You couldn't talk to anybody. They'd run away. They'd scamper away. I saw advertisements for Marlboro and Coke. That was the only color that you saw in the buildings anywhere. It's a huge city. One city, Leipzig, it was rebuilt. Big skyscrapers in Berlin. But nothing inside. Potemkin villages. Nobody in the streets in Leipzig or in East Berlin. Nobody. You said the movie, what was it? The Bourne Legacy, in which they're in East Germany. They're in East Berlin. Alexanderplatz. It's all filled up. I'm like going, hey, I was there when there was nobody. So I was told to go to speak to a guy. His name was Friedrich Mercurius, and he was the superintendent of the Church of St. Nikolai in Leipzig. So Roger said, go speak to him, give him my card, and he'll tell you about the collapse of communism, how it happened. All right? So I got, after the Olympics that I was not in, but operating with, I got back on the train, much to a very angry wife, and went back in from Spain to Leipzig and stopped at Wittenberg. Wittenberg is where Martin Luther tapped the 95 Theses on the door. You know what I'm talking about? Because he was a monk and he was objecting to what was going on in the Catholic Church. Martin Luther. I was pretty moved by that and went up to Leipzig again. I'd already been to Leipzig. Massive railroad station. Never bombed. They used that like they did in Berlin. They used the Olympic Stadium as a navigation aid. Didn't bomb it. Why bomb it, you know? And went there and walked about 1.5 miles to the church. in a vacant city with all these big buildings. A city bigger than Sacramento. Imagine that with no cars and no people. And you're all alone, being followed by 2 Stasi secret agents, by the way. The same ones who followed me the first time I showed up. Anyway, so I walk into the church. It's a beautiful church. Bach was there. Martin Luther was there preaching. And I got to talk to Friedrich Mercurius. And so I asked him, we had a desk like this, and I walk in under very mysterious things. I walk in and I sit down, thank you, and we had 2 chairs. He said, sit there. He comes in and he gets knee to knee with me, knee to knee. And I'm sitting there thinking, this is like a spy novel. And here I am all dressed up in my Orange County Newport beach clothes, which was quite the hideous looking thing there, totally out of place. And he says, first of all, I need to know something. Are you a Christian? As he sat down and put his knees to my knees, touching. And I kind of like smirky, like, well, yeah, I am. And then he says, do you go to church on Sunday? Satan? I said, well, not really. And he kind of smiled, a little bit. He said, well, but you are a believer. And I said, I absolutely am a believer. I'm a Chuck Smith believer. If you know anything about Chuck Smith.
That's where he came from.
That's right. I think you didn't mention that. And he got that. And so he said, I need to explain something to you, that when you first met downstairs with my son in the church, and I got your card, he said, you need to know that the 2 men that were following you know that you're in here in this room with me. And I'm going, oh, he said, if you're not a Christian and you go out and talk to them, they'll come in and kill me and my son. I said, well, I am a Christian and everything's safe with me. And he went on to talk about the collapse of communism and how it happened. I'm going to shorten the story. It'll be in a book. It's very powerful stuff. He said that the basis of it was, well, first of all, they wouldn't let people pray. They would have church services. They'd be approved sermons by the pastor, and the pastor couldn't deviate 1 word from the sermon that was okayed by the Stasi. The pastor would come in, go to the pulpit, read the sermon, and the 5 Stasi people would sit in front and listen to him. Then the next thing that would happen is if he did deviate, they'd take him out and kill him, and they knew that. If anybody walked in to the church to sit through a service, they'd be taken out and shot. So he said that was the nature of religion that they were telling the West was all about, but that's what was happening. So he said that the collapse started 13 years before the fall, and he said that we were pent up and people wanted to pray, and we had a Bible. Remember I said the Bible was every home in America in the 17th century? You couldn't have a Bible there. It meant that you would be killed. That was all of Eastern Europe. That's what the Soviet Union did. That's what the communists did. That's what they did to the kulaks. They stripped them of any remnant of their religion. The kulaks were Catholic. They had nothing to be associated with the Catholic Church. You had the Russians who were Orthodox. They couldn't practice their religion because of the communists. So why could they said they had on the eastern side in Germany that you could go to church. That was a lie. Only at your own death could you do that. So he said that they decided, he said it was actually him I found. He decided that what he was going to do was start a Monday Mass. And they would come in and pray. He would alone. And for the first 6 months at 6:30 every Monday, not Sunday, couldn't go to church on Sunday. That's why he asked me, do I go to church on Sunday? He said that the prayers would take place for about a half an hour. That would be Bible reading. And he said after the first 6 months, the individual decided he was going to ask another person to pray with him. If that other person was a Stasi and not a Christian, he'd be executed the next day. So after 6 months, he took the risk. He asked a person, and the person agreed to pray with him. Another 6 months goes by. They took a leap of faith and asked a third person. And they continued that for 3 years until on the Monday night before the wall fell, millions of people were in the streets at 6:30. Not one person was picked up. Not one person was executed. That's the power of the Lord. So when you ask about us seeking publicity, this is the publicity. We have the power of the Lord here. Charlie Kirk knew that. He died for that. I put down on my signature on the Declaration of Independence that I would die and sacrifice my life for this liberty. That's some heavy stuff. That's why I'm so committed. But I will do that because liberty has to prevail here. The message of the founding fathers and government of the people, for the people, and by the people has to prevail. And it will. Friedrich Mercurius. You can look him up. He's out there. Okay, any questions? Oh, let's get back to the wolves. Okay, I need to hear some input about wolves. I'll get it on tape here. Lassen County is one of the counties that I was talking to. We've been talking to Calaveras County, Plumas County, Sierra County about the wolves. And you have a ranch with cattle?
Yeah, it's I hate to be a conspiracy theorist, but it's a conspiracy theory. The people want cattle off the range, and so the ranchers keep fighting and keep winning in court. But they let these wolves in, and it's going to put a lot of people out of business. But what bothers me the most is the unconstitutionality of the whole situation, where I can't protect my private property rights.
Sure you can.
Well, you can,
I know.
But it's like my neighbor and I were talking about, and where these ranches are, it's amazing how many people watch what you do.
Right.
Because you got people that live above you, and we recently had a house burned down, and I couldn't believe all the pictures of my house burning down. It was on Facebook the next day.
That was your house burning down?
Huh?
That was your house burning down?
Yeah. But anyway.
Wait a minute. When was your house burned down?
6 weeks ago.
And are you fighting the wolves?
No. But what I'm saying though is, my neighbor and I were having a discussion about, these wolves that come in, would you shoot one? Mm-hmm. And you have to think about it, because you got all these people that live around you that are going to watch you and turn you in. It's like I had a friend of mine up in Modoc County, Nathan, his nephew, back when the one got killed there on Lookout Cutoff. Remember that? It was 10 years ago when they first brought him down here. And
when they brought the wolves in 10 years ago.
They brought the wolves in 10 years ago. They had one get killed up there in Big Valley. Well, the following summer, it happened in December, and the following summer, my friend, his ranch gets invaded by fishing, I call it predator protection business.
Kind of like they did Davis, right?
Yeah.
I was up at Lake Davis when they did all that.
CHP, the sheriff, everybody's, CAL FIRE, all those law enforcement people converged to this guy's place.
Oh, I'm sorry, CAL FIRE is law enforcement?
They're law enforcement.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I did. You know, did you know the Department of Education has a SWAT team?
I'm not know that.
Well, no. See, that's just it. When you take a bureaucracy and you militarize it, that's what's happening. I just happened to witness a CAL FIRE person jump out of his car to help aid a highway patrolman, and it didn't say CAL FIRE on his vest that he was wearing. It said police. I thought to myself, well, that's kind of weird, isn't it?
Police officers.
Elios.
Peace officer,
Yeah. I had a friend
Well,
who was-
isn't that called militarization of the government? They're not supposed to be. You know, I saw when I was up in Paradise during the fire. I went up the Paradise fire because I had a property up in McGalley at one time. It burned down, but it wasn't. It was a long time ago. But I was doing my radio show in Sutter County, and I had people calling me up in Paradise because we had a huge turnout about 2 weeks before. Probably 400 people showed up at the church there in Paradise for New California. Then we had the Paradise fire, and so I went up as a news guy, and I got up to the old golf course up there. I can't remember the name. It starts with a T, but anyway, I got up to that golf course, and there happened to be a base camp there during the fire. Did you know they had a base camp? Oh, but the base camp was built 6 months before. Could house 3,000 people. And they were using it as a large training center in case there was a fire or disaster. That was on the Skyway. So, you know, I thought to myself as I was in the fire truck, and I'm seeing this lit area. Now, why it was lit? Because it was daytime, but it was lighted because the cloud overhead was a thermite cloud. Are you familiar with those? They're purple. Do you guys ever see any purple clouds around here? That's because aluminum oxide bonds with iron and forms thermite. And when thermite smoke goes up, it's purple. It sucks moisture, everything out until it's actually black underneath it. So they had the lights on, big football stadium type lights on in the morning. I'm like going, oh, this is pretty irregular. So anyway, the fire guy says, well, we have to wait here for about another 15 minutes. I said, no, I'm getting out because the story's here. Why? Because what was rolling out the gate that we had to stop for were big 18-wheelers, all loaded up with brand new telephone poles and spools of wire, all the transformers, everything. They're all going up and rescuing Paradise. I'm like going, here's the fire. I'm watching the fire. I got the smoke. We got the lights. Imagine the surrealness of that. Ron and Patty Plum, for 3 months, worked at that base camp. And what was their job? To gather data from the people, walk from house to house, the people of Paradise, and ask them, if there is a fire, what is going to be your evacuation routes? They worked there. They would come down and every day religiously typed all that information in on the computers. Now, isn't there something wrong with that picture? Yeah, there's something really wrong with that. Fire that burns at thermite temperature burns at 4,000 degrees. If you're using a microwave, if you're using a laser together, because they're in combination, it forms a plasma. That plasma, when it hits something that's wired, goes at 6,000 degrees. So if you wonder why the houses hit those smart meters and everything goes at 6,000 degrees, and the only thing left in the house is white powder, now you know why. That's called direct energy weapons. That's what was used down in Los Angeles. Aren't you just learning a lot about your country? So let me stay on. I want to stay on track with this. I know it's a big explosive one, but so this is what they're doing out here. That's why my heart's broken to look at the forest, because nothing's going to come up on that soil out there unless you go back and plant it like you guys have been doing up here. That's Lassen County. That's got those new plants coming in. I watched it all. I stopped and looked at it. I want to take pictures. That to me that's going to be the model for this state. We're going to do this up and down the state, but we're going to get rid of these wolves first.
They had a large meeting in Aden. People came all the way up from Bakersfield and so forth a couple months ago about the wolves. All these ranchers, and it was a huge meeting. But you can, if they're not collared, you can take them out.
Well, I don't. You know what? I don't want to talk about that. I don't want that talk yet.
They're
but
yeah.
familiar with the study that was done?
Okay, hang.
on wolves? There was a woman interviewed, and she had a lot of intestinal problems. And the doctors, they couldn't figure it out. And to make a long story short, what they found out was wolves carry a disease in their feces. Right? And you go out in the woods, you're hunting or whatever, or your dog, they pick it up. And if you come in physical contact with that, you get that disease. They're not, but see, that's a future that maybe you could fight with. And they were able to have some stricter enforcements in those states like Wyoming and Montana because of that. Were you aware of that?
No.
Well,
Maybe that will be something that could help.
I don't know if it will.
You
Well,
know,
and aren't we out of money too? So when we lose a calf to wolves or cow or whatever, we're supposed to get reimbursed, and we're already out of
It's
money.
already out of money.
We're already out of money.
yeah, but but see, that's a real safety feature there. You know, it isn't just environmental; it's environmental.
It's
Yeah.
okay. Let me tell you something. There's going to be one way to stop it initially, and that's New California. Is New California. That I mean, the basis is that. But in the meantime, I'm looking for that story, and we got it on tape. But I'm any other things you might want to add with that, because there are ways to mitigate this and stop it. I'm up here at this time of the year because you still have cattle out there, or no? You pull them all in. I know some of the guys are pulling them in.
But the thing is these, like when there's wolves in your area, Fish and Wildlife doesn't tell you that, but
They don't tell you.
but you know they're there because
We saw it.
I've lived on my road my whole life, and I could count on my hands and toes the number of times I've seen a fishing game truck go down my road. And last spring, when there was wolves in the area, there wasn't one, there was two.
What? Let me ask you this: what is the history that you know of? And you guys live here. This is your turf. What is the history, long term, of the gray wolf in this area?
Never.
Oh, shocking! I'm so shocked.
They want to tell us it was.
1,200 grizzly bears. Great.
Yeah,
That's the next one.
Newsom's next.
It's just-
Right. Okay. You guys, you've heard of rewilding.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. This is the United Nations Agenda 21 plan. This is Adolf Hitler's plan. Think of it, Adolf Hitler's plan, because he wanted to rewild. There's some people that even said Adolf Hitler has been in this area in Northern California back in the day when he was around. There are those stories. I mean, now we've done tracking, trust me. But this is their plan, and it comes from the United Nations. And the whole idea is to get rural people off of rural land into the city centers, stack and pack. Right. You understand now the theory that we have about our map, because it puts rural people in charge of the urban centers. Right.
Sims,
Reynolds versus Sims.
Reynolds versus Sims.
You have no representation now.
I mean,
Right.
just think about it right now, California as it sits today. If you got that repealed, the rural counties outnumber the urban counties already today.
Right.
So it would change California legislation overnight.
It would, but the problem with the legislature, everything is not connected to the Constitution. That's the problem. So they do unconstitutional behavior. Now, we are reorganizing California, and you have to do this for the financial reasons and also for the constitutional reasons. So California is going to go back to that model. The Constitution of 1849-50, the one that came back with the compact, we already adopted it 2 years ago in our new California. And so that's why I say you're operating now and they don't even know it. The Fish and Game has no idea they're operating now under our Constitution, we the people. And they're about to find out. They will find out. Well, they probably found out now, but they will find out. And this whole idea of rewilding is done. But it's going to take time. This is what we're trying to do. And that's why I'm here tonight. That's one of the reasons I came up, was to hear this story. Stories
Well,
like this.
Look at Sierra County. I mean, they're just getting
Wiped out.
They've already went over the hit, ran out of cattle there almost, and they're over on the other side of the hill there at Border Town. That was the latest kill I read about, the day before yesterday, I guess. They're at Border Town.
We've been working with people in Calaveras County, and Sierra County, and Tuolumne County.
But I mean, the thing is you can't, if you can control, right? I mean, I talked to a rancher friend in Idaho, and I said, how do you ranch with wolves up there? He goes, well, you start shooting them, they leave. That's all we're asking for.
Yeah, well, I think you have to protect your property because the Constitution says that, and the Constitution supersedes them. I'm going to read to you.
One game board and the rest of them will catch on.
That's called FJ,
But it's not,
Frontier Justice.
it's not them though. It's their up the up.
Yeah, it's them. Yeah, I there's things that are happening. I'm gonna read you something about the thinking that's going on with us in New California. This is the first bill that we're going to sign, and so it should ring pretty clear. I'm going to start with the preamble. I'll read the whole thing. It'll only take a minute. The original Constitution for the United States of America was created under common law and specifically banned titles of nobility under the original 13th Amendment, which included barristers loyal to the British Crown. And under this system, local sheriffs were the highest authority, as they were direct representatives of we the people at the county level. The Act of 1871 created the District of Columbia, a separate entity from the United States and under a different jurisdiction and law form that defined by the Constitution of the United States under Article 6, which states in part, the Constitution and the laws of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land. Over the years and through many different schemes and manipulations, the jurisdiction of the District of Columbia has been forced upon the citizens through the use of corporate fictions created to represent the living man in their system of commerce, uniform commercial codes, admiralty, maritime law, and statutory law. Because of this, counties have been created as corporations under the jurisdiction of the District of Columbia. Preamble: the Constitution of the State of New California, Article 1, Section 3 states, the U.S. Constitution is the supreme law of the land. However, the powers of the federal government are limited to those powers specifically delegated. All powers not so delegated are revised or reversed or reserved for the citizens of the State of New California, who are bound by this Constitution as the supreme law of the State of New California. No other source of law that is inconsistent with these two supreme standards shall be recognized within the boundaries of the State of New California. The Constitution of the State of New California, Article 1, Section 22, states in part, and you've got constitutions, every citizen shall have the right to acquire, keep, and bear arms, including any components, materials necessary for their use or effect, in the lawful defense of himself, his possessions, his residence, his families, his community, or the state. Furthermore, Article 8, Section 8 states, members of the free militia shall be recognized and deputized by a county sheriff when needed. All current counties or corporations under statutory law, which allows the County Board of Supervisors to appoint a sheriff to fill a vacancy without an election, creating an opportunity for foreign influence and infiltration. Be it enacted by the Assembly and the Senate of New California State Section number 2, sheriffs in every county of the State of New California shall be elected. In the event of a vacancy, an emergency election will be held with the highest ranking deputy sheriff acting as sheriff in the interim. Each elected sheriff in the state of New California shall be equipped with education and training in the form of videos, online meetings, and other constitutional sources to operate with confidence as a constitutional sheriff. Each and every county of the state of New California shall have a constitutional sheriff. All sheriffs of the New California state shall be the highest authority in their respective counties under constitutional law and counties within the boundaries of the state of New California, and shall not be corporate entities under the jurisdiction of the District of Columbia, which is what you have now. Well, sort of. Sheriffs of the various counties within the state of New California are to utilize the state militia to protect we the people in the event of insurrection or invasion. This includes occupants engaged in illegal drug grows, human trafficking, drug smuggling, and many other illegal activity that impacts local residents of the county when the county resources are insufficient to address the threat. It is the position of the state of New California that sheriffs in every county of the state shall uphold their oaths of office to the Constitution of the United States. Sheriffs shall follow the doctrine of the lesser magistrate, which states that when the superior or higher civil authority makes unjust, immoral laws or decrees, the lesser or lower ranking civil authority has both the right and the duty to refuse obedience to that authority. It is the duty of each sheriff in each county to uphold the sovereignty of the state of New California in their day-to-day duties serving county residents. County sheriffs shall reject any federal law, mandate, or other ordinances or state or statute that oversteps the limits of those powers specifically delegated to the federal government under the Constitution of the United States, and to protect the rights of we, the people of the state of New California. You have a sheriff. Is he elected?
No, not the current one.
Okay. What other
I'm not worried about my local sheriff. It's the state's.
No, you're missing the point. The point is jurisdiction. I hear that's not an insult. Just you're missing something here.
I understand that he is a supreme law enforcement officer.
But you don't have that in this county. He's not elected.
No,
so
not elected.
Right. So you don't have that. You don't have that actually. Regardless of this what it says here, if you have another county and that sheriff is elected, he's got that sovereignty. Right. Yours is elected. He can tell these guys to get the hell off. That's right.
Don't come in my county.
And you've had sheriffs do that. My sheriff Barnes in Anderson over in Yuba City, they tell the state all the time, don't come. And my feeling with you guys is tell them to get the hell out. That's what you need to do. And I think sheriff that's an elected sheriff should be able to do that. That's where you need to go. So a lesser magistrate. They're killing your animals. That's not right. That's your private property. You have a constitutional right to that. And that's what you have to tell them. You want your constitutional rights protected. Period.
So if we don't have that sheriff, as we don't here, does that mean a special election type scenario? Or how does one?
Well, the first thing, ask him, he'll get you some documents.
Your sheriff right now was appointed by the Board of Supervisors. And we have a number of counties in California that has been because Soros and whoever funded the
retirement
sheriffs to retire. And instead of holding a special election to replace the sheriff, the Board of Supervisors have appointed. Now the sheriff does not work for you, we the people, he works for the Board of Supervisors. That's the problem. We have a DA in Lodi County who was appointed. She knows that she needs to be elected, and she will. She's doing a phenomenal job. But our sheriff he's the one that told Newsom to take a hike on the COVID thing, and he got interviews from LA Times and everyone else in the state.
Oh, we're not the brass rail when they
right. So your sheriff right now, I talked to a sergeant, sheriff's deputy who came in here just at the beginning of the meeting. I said, how did you do cross? Oh, he's great. And I said, but he doesn't work for we the people. He works for the Board of Supervisors. And she kind of, and she goes, yeah, you're right. And I said, he needs to be elected.
Doesn't mean that he's a bad guy.
No, it doesn't. No.
But he does not lesser magistrate.
He doesn't understand. Let me explain.
Hold him
let me explain what happened. Over the course of several years, we have been talking to the sheriffs, and we have a very Chad Bianco. He's like a real sheriff, and he's in. I mean, I'm not even going to speak to what. Oh, does that say Bianco?
He was here about 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Well, he probably never brought this up about. Did you say anything about the wolves or anything?
Oh, yeah.
What did he say? Shoot him? What did he say? What did he say?
He's elected.
It was the first thing out of his mouth was the wolves.
Yeah, and what did he say? To do what with them?
He was gonna let us shoot them.
Protect your property.
Yeah.
Protect your property, right? Okay. Well, you kind of see where I'm going.
Right.
Okay. But what I'm trying to do, what I think is a great idea, first of all, we brought our sheriffs around because the sheriffs always believed that all the sheriffs all throughout the state, we went traveling up and down the state, meeting with sheriffs all over. And finally, we didn't have to go to all the counties, but we went to enough of them where the sheriffs that were elected sheriffs got the point. They have the person who was the guy from El Dorado County. What was his name? John D'Agostini. Remember him? He told the feds to get the hell out and give me your guns. By the way, So and that was everybody's like, oh my God, a sheriff can. That's the way it's supposed to work, and that's constitutional. So, and this is the way it's triggered. They take an oath of office. And the first thing they take an oath of office to is the U.S. Constitution, not the state. And they have to abide first and foremost to the U.S. Constitution. My suggestion is you meet with them and you tell them you're the lesser magistrate. Like it or not, you are hired, but you're still the lesser magistrate. And we need to protect our animals, and we're going to shoot them. We're going to shoot those wolves or shoot at them. We don't care, and probably you might want to tell these guys to get the hell out.
Most people are scared of the government.
Right.
Our sheriff has said, and I've heard him say, yeah, we're not pushing the issue in regards to, yes, we understand protecting your property. However, with that, there is a hesitance in the background of,
Sure there is.
he doesn't work for us, he's working for the government in regards to what they are.
Right.
And that's how most of our law enforcement is they are controlled by their government, their higher ups, instead of looking.
Well, what you're going to ask them to do, I mean, I totally get that, the mentality. That's why we took the risk years ago to go to the sheriffs and ask them this and have this conversation. And we've gotten really positive responses from sheriffs. And I can name a whole bunch of them that they're no longer paying attention to what the state tells them. They'll listen if they're discerning now. If it's going to apply, it's legal, we're going to do our thing.
Keep in mind the government is funding an awful lot of county stuff. So here's what we got going on is
they're control. Right. I understand. I understand that. The big thing you need to do, it puts pressure on them. They don't like. They don't like the pressure. They don't like and we're talking about the people who hold on to the money. You have counties that your county employees answer to the state first. They don't answer to the supervisors. They're not their job, because you don't. Is this a charter county?
No.
It's not. No. So charter counties, that's different. This is I can't remember what it's called. General law. Thank you. It's a general law county, so that's how it works in California. But that's the Constitution. That's a corporation. That's what you get there. You don't get these jurisdictional things that are sovereign in that kind of constitution, a corporation, where the essence of sovereignty is jurisdiction, is your own territory. That's why a sheriff will always be reelected and will not be appointed by the county board, because the county board hires and fires them. And but my point to you guys, you got to do something to protect, and you got to go after the sheriff. That's the first thing. That's your first line, is to go after them, and then also I'd pursue the other sheriffs right now. There's other things going on. I'm here to get information, gather it, and turn it over to the right people, and then we'll see what happens. They're already doing things in Potter Potter Valley, right? They're already doing things about the water up there. You heard about that? If you heard about that going on, they're trying to take the dams down. We think we got that stopped. Okay. Colleen Broder and some of our new California people have done some work there. We're trying to do the same work here to get this stopped with these animals and get them under control and get rid of them.
The other thing that we've done with our sheriff is we've gone into him often and say, we support you, we are behind you, you are working for us, and we're going to make sure that you are taken care of. And the sheriff needs to know that we, the people, are behind them. And that's the whole idea of going in and sharing the Constitution and now this bill, so forth, so on, so that they know that we, the people, which is much stronger than the government, is supporting them.
So in Modoc County, you guys still have consultation council?
No.
You don't have that anymore?
I don't know what that is. I've been there 20 whatever years.
Where they have a meeting with the citizens and the agencies and the sheriff has it?
No.
You never heard about it? I think you had it for a while there.
I can go in and talk to my sheriff anytime I want to. It just blows me away that other people in California, they've never seen their sheriff. They've never gotten to go sit down with their sheriff. I said, I get to go in, I just go in the door and say, hey, you got a minute? Yeah. So access is amazing.
We used to have that. When I was a supervisor, we had that consultation council.
Yeah, we've never had it.
And it was good because citizens came in and made a point with all the government agencies, and then the local bureaucrats
shut it down. Interesting.
So that's the problem I see with
anyway, my admonishment to you is let your sheriff know that you're behind them and you want him to stand up for what is right because we the people.
Well, until he's an elected.
Well, still, you can still.
Like I said, nothing bad saying about our sheriff.
Right, I
understand the dynamics of what we're talking about here will not apply.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you.
Waiting for the next check from the government within our whole system.
Sure, thank you. I hope you enjoyed it.
I did.
Now you have to work for it. So what was your name again? Jeff what? Camphill.
He was the county supervisor for 8 years. In fact, he's on Heather Hadwick's. What ward are you on? Heather Hadwick?
I'm on Heather Hadwick's.
What's your number?
530-260-6328.
See, I have 2 bulls up
Is that
on
an
my
H?
property.
Hemphill?
Hemp, yeah.
They're not.
H-E-M-P-H-I-L.
Hemphill?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you're growing a hemp out there?
Yeah.
No hemp for you.
Well, thank you.
No, thank you very much. Yeah, thanks for being here. I hope I helped out, you know. And we're all going to do our thing now. We're done. Yeah. That's nice meeting you. Yeah, we'll stay in touch.